Oh my gosh. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here with us today. This is such an awesome thing to see. I'm checking out the chat, and like Pam said, I see a lot of familiar names, but I see a lot of new to me names as well. So it's really, really cool to see everybody here. Pam had mentioned before we got started that you guys have set a record with the number of people that have signed up to participate, that there's over 100 people that registered to participate in the Seed Summit this year. And that's incredible. We've been doing this for a few years now, and it seems it grows every year. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and new folks from different places are getting interested in seeds and seed libraries. And it is just such an amazing thing for all of us to be able to come together and to do this. So we got a pretty cool day set up here for you. So I'm going to talk a little bit here, get things started. We're going to talk about seed swaps. We're going to talk a little bit about an experience that I had recently, a seed story that I want to share with you guys. Then after that, Pam is going to make a big time announcement. She's going to announce this year's 2025's one seed, one state. What is the seed going to be? You're going to find out today. We're going to do some library profile survey results. We're going to get into that. And then we've got a couple of speakers here. I'm really, really excited about this. There are a couple of movers and shakers in the seed world, most certainly. We got Julia Dakin from Going to Seed is going to be speaking with us today. So that's really exciting. And then Rebecca Newburn from Grow Richmond, which you also might know from like the Cool Beans newsletter. She's going to be here to talk to us a little bit today. So that's very cool that we have an opportunity to learn from both of those folks. And then we're going to have a little bit of roundtable so we can all kind of chat and share some of our experiences and challenges and that sort of thing. So we'll have a little bit of time to touch on some other topics as well. The story that I want to tell you guys, I was recently had this opportunity to visit Terra Madre, which is an event organized by the Slow Food Organization in Torino, Italy. It happens every other year, so it's a biennial event. And this year, it was the 20th anniversary of Terra Madre. And now, if you're not familiar with Terra Madre, I'll just tell you real brief. It is, well, it's possibly one of the most exciting events that I've ever been to. It is an international food festival, and people come from all over the world to share their cultures and their foods and to talk about the importance of preserving the history of this food so future generations can enjoy it. And so there was so many lectures and educational opportunities and networking and so much delicious food to sample. I spent pretty much the first day just eating food, just walking around eating all the foods. They had so it was set up so all these different tents were there to represent delegates from different countries, right? So I was there with Slow Food North America, and my actual work purpose was we were there through Slow Food USA. We've been developing the slow food position on seed. Slow Seed is the name of our organization, and the role that seeds play in an equitable food system. So we were developing this draft of our declaration, and we were there to present it to the international delegates to get feedback and that sort of thing. So we could kind of fine tune it to make sure everybody's voices were heard. So that was my work excuse for being there. But the first day I spent all of my days in the Italy tents. They had tents for every different region of Italy, and they had food producers from all over the world, all over Italy. Oh my gosh, I could spend the whole day talking about the foods that I ate. It was absolutely such an interesting experience. Delicious, but interesting because each region that you would visit, they would have similar types of things. Of course, there'd be meats and cheeses and vegetables and that sort of thing. But each of these meats, cheeses, and vegetables were specific to this region of Italy. They were unlike anything else from any other region of Italy. And the pride that these folks had in their local food was just stunning. It was so inspiring to get to see, here in the United States where we're interested in local food and starting a local food movement. In Italy, that's the way of life. So it was just so interesting to really have a chance to be adjacent to that and learn from folks. And then I had this opportunity to talk to the international delegates about seeds and the role that seeds play in a food system. And it was fantastic. And we learned a lot. One thing that I learned is what we're doing here in the Michigan Seed Library Network is there's no other thing like it in the whole world. There's nothing like this anywhere else. I mean, we've all discussed before about how there's nothing like the Michigan Seed Library Network here in the USA. There's no statewide organization doing what we are doing, sharing resources, coming together. That's not happening anywhere else on the planet. So folks to get to learn about what we're doing here and I could share some of our experiences. They really took that and they were taking that home, those ideas home to try to replicate what we're doing here, this magic that's happening right now while we're all gathering. These folks are going to try to replicate that in their communities as well. It was really, really awesome. After the talk, I met a gentleman, his name was Matteo, and Matteo was a local. He was from Torino, and he wanted to come and talk to me afterwards about his insights and thoughts on the presentation. And now Matteo was a gardener, but in Torino, it's a big city, it's the capital of the region, right? So there wasn't a lot of like sprawling areas for gardens, but there's community gardens, and he was a gardener in his local community garden, and he was telling me about how much he enjoyed the community garden because it allowed him to grow his own food, some of his own food, not all of it certainly, but quite a bit of his own fresh vegetables, and how he knew that the vegetables that he grew in his garden were more nutritious than the vegetables that he might buy at the grocery store. They were fresher, they were grown by him, he knew how they were cared for. That was something that was very important to him. And by growing his own food in this community garden, it also gave him the opportunity to grow something specific to his region, right? He was growing the foods of Torino, right? So he understood the importance of local food and how growing that food preserves that culture and that history, and how these locally grown foods are more nutritious and more delicious than things that he could buy. He was checking all of these boxes while we were having this conversation. But he says, I'd never thought about seeds before. I'd never thought about the impact that seeds play on what we're doing. He says to him, up until this presentation, he'd always thought of seeds as just simply, he called it another ingredient in the garden. You've got water, you've got sun, you've got soil, you've got seeds, and he never thought of it any further than that. That was as much as he'd contemplated seeds. But then when he got to be a part of our conversation and presentation about seeds, he came to realize that seeds are the cornerstone of everything that he's interested in, right? The local food, the preservation of culture, the delicious and nutritious food that could be available to him in his community all comes back to that seeds. And he says it was so eye-opening for him to be able to see his garden and his food in such a different way, to see the significant role that seeds play. And I thought, wow, to have that impact on somebody, that's, to get that takeaway. You could talk to a room full of people and you don't know what people are really getting out of it. But when folks come up with that kind of feedback, it's like, wow, we really, at least in this one person's, corner of the world, we made an impact and we changed his perspective on things. And that's so cool. And to relate that to what's happening here with the Michigan Seed Library Network, this is what all of you are doing in your communities, right? By having these seed libraries, by connecting to these folks, by having these conversations, you're having impacts in the world that you may not even realize. I had this one conversation with one gentleman. You could be having dozens of conversations with all sorts of folks from your community, right? The Michigan Sea Library Network, you could think of it as really like we're dropping a bunch of pebbles in the pond, right? And those ripples are going all over the place. And by working together as a network, as this community, we are able to impact all of our individual communities so much more, right? So to be able to be here with you and to have this moment to learn from each other and to spend this time together, it's one of the most important things that I think that we can do. Even if we don't directly see the results of the work that we do, it's happening. It's happening, and it's happening big time, you know? So I really want to take this moment to say thanks to Pam. She just took her headphones off and walked away, but we wouldn't be able to have the summit if it wasn't for Pam. She's the one that brought us all together. She's the one that does most of the organizing. You guys are librarians. You know how it works. Librarians are incredibly organized people. I am not so much. So we have to be so thankful to Pam. So drop in the chat and tell Pam how thankful you are that she put this together for us. Yeah, you're back, Pam,
Yeah.
just in time.
I had to take the phone out of the room. It was starting to ring.
I'm just telling everybody how thankful we should be that you work so hard to help put this together. To have this opportunity to network and learn from each other and spend time together is only possible because of the hard work and dedication of seed librarians all around the state, and you in particular, Pam, because you're the one that's bringing us all together.
Well, thank you, Ben. It's a passion project, I guess you could say. So I'm really happy to do it. I'm really happy to see people here today. And so yeah, thank you, and I'm happy to do it.
Well, librarian boss. Adrian's right. I love it. I love it for sure. So next on the agenda, it looks like oh, I'm going to be at Pam's library tomorrow. That's an
Yes,
important thing to note. I get to visit Pam's library. I tried to make it there. I think it was last month. It was not meant to be. But it's okay because now we get to go tomorrow. So tomorrow, Monday, October 21st, if you're in the area, come to visit Pam's library. I will be there at what time, Pam?
you'll be here at 6:30.
I'll be there
Well,
at
you'll be there at
6:30.
6.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'll be there plenty early. You guys come at 6:30. We'll hang out. We're going to be talking about one of my new books, The Heritage Pantry, which is kind of the other side of the garden. Once we've grown all this wonderful food, now what do we do with it, right? So we're going to be talking about that, hanging out. having a good time. So definitely come and check that out.
Yeah, I'm at Lyon Township Public Library. You can sign up at our website or just come. You know, it's we can always put out more chairs so, if you don't register.
It's a very accommodating space.
Well,
So
and for those of you who have never heard Bevan speak before, it'd be a good chance of, to kind of check him out and see he's probably one of the best speakers you'll ever have at your library. And, he doesn't do this so that he can publicize his his presentations. I know that, but he is a pretty if you can only have one speaker, I would pick him. So
oh my goodness. Okay. Well, thanks for that. No pressure.
now we're
Um,
done. Now we're done saying nice things about each other. We can move on.
so now we got to get real because the next thing on the agenda here is the seed swap. And at this time every year at the summit, I would be announcing the dates of the Central Michigan seed swap. And if you've ever come to the seed swap in the many years that we've done it, you know that it is an event unlike anything else as far as seed swaps go. It is fantastic. I was trying to think about how long we've been doing it for, and I honestly couldn't even tell you. There was a couple of years there where we had a gap, and we won't talk about that, but we all know what I mean. And it's thrown off my ability to count how many years things have been happening, but it's been a long time. And when we started this seed swap, we started it in the basement of an art gallery. In Midland, called the Creative 360. And they were kind enough to let us use their little basement space for this event. And we immediately that first year overflowed the building with folks. It was a little building, 100 something people came, but still it was tremendous. And so we almost immediately had to move up into the Chippewa Nature Center in Midland, which was a gloriously gorgeous venue. And they were so kind to let us be there. And that was our home for a number of years. And this event was so cool because, people come from all over the locally, certainly, but all over the state. People started coming from other states. Folks came from Canada. I think people came eventually from 13 different states to come to the seed swap. And we had speakers from all over the place. And it was one of the most fun things that I've been able to participate in. But inevitably we outgrew the nature center as well. And last year we had to move into a much larger venue. We moved into a high school and it was much larger than ever before. There was like over 2,000 people that came through the door last year. And it was really, really cool to see that happening. But what happens when we get too large, and this is something that I've experienced in other facets of my life as well, when things get too large, we start to lose those personal connections that mean so much to me. And the reason that we did the seed swap was develop this community, this network of seed savers to come together and to share some time. And it really outgrew what it was meant to be, I feel. So next year we will not be hosting the Central Michigan seed swap. But have no fear, there's no problem with that because what this means is this opens the door to opportunity. Whenever one door shuts, another door opens. Isn't that what they say? So we're opening up this new door here. And what this means is I want to see more small, localized seed swaps happening. And this is the opportunity for that to happen. I've always wanted all of the seed librarians from all over the state to make the drive in February to come and see me, but that's a lot to ask. What if each community took this as an opportunity to start your own little seed swap? That's really what it's all about. When we can be together at a table and have time to have conversations with each other, to learn about each other, to tell the stories of the seeds that we share. That's really what it's all about. And this is an awesome opportunity to further engage with your communities, right? Folks that might be interested in coming in to learn about the seed library or something, they're definitely going to be interested in coming to learn about the seed swap, right? The seed swap's just a living, breathing, one day only seed library type of activity. You know what I mean? It's an excellent program opportunity. It's a wonderful way to connect with gardeners and let them learn about all of the things that you offer at your libraries. So I would encourage all of you to consider, it doesn't have to be big. Doesn't have to be an outrageous seed circus like I've put together in the past. This could be a small, intimate moment to really connect with people. And you can feel free to reach out to me at any time with questions. If you need any guidance to kind of help get things rolling a little bit for you, I'd be happy to help. Most certainly, because I feel that one of the beauties of saving seeds and sharing seeds is that personal connection, that opportunity to connect with your community. That's why seed libraries are so cool, because that's what you guys are doing. You're directly connecting with members of your community and helping them have access to seeds and gardening knowledge. And then in turn, hopefully they're bringing seeds back and building that community. You know how it works. It's a synergistic relationship. And I'd really like to see that on a more localized level. So this is the first time I've told anybody in public that we're not doing the seed swap. So I'm glad to have this opportunity to kind of get it off my chest and to talk about it with you guys. This is a safe space, right? So I feel comfortable with that. But really, please consider like your garden clubs. I see here Michelle saying her local garden club just opened a seed exchange in the lobby last week. That is exactly it. It's just as simple as that. Connecting with your local garden club, your herb society, master gardeners, whatever it might be, presenting this as an opportunity for you guys to work together, to put on this small event for the community. And I'm telling you, when we did this first one at the art gallery in the basement, we had no marketing, we had no budget. I mean, we had a little bit of Facebook, but barely that. And I mean, 100 people came to this thing, 100 people. And I didn't even know who these people were. They came because they heard about the seed swap. They like come right out of the woodwork. So it's just such a great opportunity to unlock that potential that already exists in your community. So that being said, we should probably transition to the next thing here on the agenda, which is a little bit more upbeat and exciting. Pam's going to tell us all about one seed, one state.
Well, great. Yeah, I think the idea of having a seed swap more regional is wonderful. And one thing we can think about too is within library land, for those of you who work in public or academic libraries, possibly you could work together with other seed libraries in your cooperative. Or I know that I'm in the library network, TLN. I mean, our library is. And we have TLN has we're a group in TLN as well as the greater group. So if you are a TLN library, check out joining the Seed Library group. It's not super active right now, but if we got more people posting and interested, it would be a great way, to reach out to each other and say, hey, you're in my co-op, you're in my area, let's do a regional seed swap. So, and kind of fill the gap, I guess, that has been going to be created by the Central Michigan Seed Swap Net. But I certainly understand when he called it a seed circus, I had to laugh because I've been to some seed circuses and it's fun, but it's Ben and his wife and puts in an incredible amount of time and money into that, and I can see why splitting it up a little more regionally, it makes more sense at this point. And maybe in the future we can pull something off statewide again. Who knows, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's always room for that sort of thing to happen. But I think that for me, like you said, I mean, it's a ton of work to put this thing on, and it costs money and it's all that sort of stuff. But really, I think that my motivator, because it's always been a ton of work and a bunch of money, so that hasn't deterred me in the past. I think that it just got so big where it was like, I mean, I didn't even have a chance to have conversations with people
Right.
barely at this thing, And I thought, well, that's the most fun part, and I'm missing out on the fun of the whole thing. And if I'm missing out on some of the fun, what really brings value to this event, a lot of other people probably are too. It's natural for me to want to scale things up to be the biggest, most elaborate, off the wall thing I can think of. But maybe that doesn't really serve the purpose of what we were trying to do. So if we can use this as an opportunity to inspire other folks to do something in their communities where we can have little seed swaps all over the place, I think that that's going to be more beneficial for folks.
Yeah, and more people can attend a local event too. I mean, not everybody's within an hour's drive of Midland, including myself, but I always thought it was a worthy cause.
Oh
But
yeah.
it's hard. Some people work that day. There's 100 reasons why people can't attend that want to attend. So having a regional seed swap that's under your control, it makes great sense. Okay, I'm going to share my screen and we're going to talk about the one seed, one state. Let's see. I'm going. Alrighty. So a lot of you have participated in One Seed, One State. I think we had close to 300 libraries last year participate, which was mind-blowing. It's really like Ben said, something that no other state has done on a statewide basis. Now, there have been some regional, one community, one seed type things, and we certainly see the value in that, just like the regional seed swaps. But we felt the need because our state is so, there's huge populated areas where a lot of us are, and then there's the UP and northern Michigan where one seed library might be all alone. There might not be anything else for 50 miles around, that does what they do. And we just thought and then having this type of an annual meeting kind of enables people to participate, to share ideas, to not feel so alone. Back when our seed library started in 2013, there weren't many models there to go by. We just kind of had heard that this was going on, and now we've got all these seed libraries, and I think it's phenomenal how many seed libraries we have in Michigan. So anyway, going back to the original subject of One Seed, One State, for those of you who have never participated or are new to seed libraries or new to seed libraries in Michigan, this, as I mentioned, this is seed libraries all across the state of Michigan. We want to promote growing and sharing and saving seeds. And so we came up with the One Seed, One State initiative. And it's not limited to public libraries or academic libraries. We have other organizations. There's a handful of garden clubs. We've got a couple of little free seed libraries that participate. If you have any other kind of community organizations or tribal organizations, everyone's welcome to participate, as long, we kind of hope that seed libraries are open to the public, but we, that's what we strive for, is that anybody who opens a seed library opens it up to anyone who wants to participate. But every seed library makes their own rules too. So but everyone is welcome to enter or to participate in One Seed, One State, regardless. We try to pick a seed that's kind of easy to grow. It's an annual or a biennial, as in this case. I'll tell you a little bit early on that. Each library receives seeds, and we have all the downloadable files that you need to run the program. Some libraries add to that, some libraries don't. We try to have a seed that was either developed in Michigan or has a strong Michigan connection. So one of the things is that some libraries like to collect information. They have people register for the One Seed, One State, and get their information in their emails. That may be for just statistics purposes. And some libraries like to send out little reminders, like saying, hey, it's time to plant your seeds. If you picked them up in, some libraries open their seed libraries earlier, and the people may have taken their seeds home and forgotten they had them. So it's always a good little nudge to say, hey, you got your seeds, and it's time to plant them. You can send them another reminder when it's time to harvest them. So if that's all according to each seed library of how much they want to do with their patrons. With my personal one, we do not collect the information, but some want to. So that's up to you. So our 2025 seed is a first in a couple of ways. It's our first root vegetable that we've had, and it's our first biennial. And so, drum roll, please. It's the little finger carrot. to the right, yay! To the right, you see a poster that Bevan's lovely wife Heather creates for us every year. You'll receive a file for this poster when you sign up, and you can print it out and use it as a poster, or however you can put it up around your library. So a little bit about the little finger carrot. The reason we picked this over other carrots is for the easy to grow factor. When some people are beginning gardeners, they may have never grown a carrot before, or they might have felt that carrots were too hard, because some of them grow crooked because their soil isn't good enough. Well, because the little finger carrot's only 3 or 4 inches tall or long, you don't need to prepare your bed to the depth of 15 inches because to grow nice straight big carrots, you have to do quite a bit of preparation of your garden bed. So little finger carrot being only 3 or 4 inches, if you have really compact soil or clay soil or something where it's really hard for you to dig down deep, this might be the carrot you can try. So it's great for compact soils. It's also good for container growing. If you have a fairly decent sized pot that's at least 12 inches deep, you can intensively plant your little finger carrots, giving each one 2 or 3 inches of space, to grow and from each other. If you can stress anything to your patrons, is that thinning your carrots are going to make better carrots. And, that when we put out the brochure, that's going to be stressed. If you plant your carrot seeds and they're really close together, they're going to grow more slowly, and they won't grow as large. So, there's lots of little tips on growing good carrots, and we'll have that all in the brochure. Because this is a fast growing small carrot, it can be planted every 2 or 3 weeks. So you can teach your patrons about succession planting. Carrots are cold hardy. They can remain in the ground even after it gets quite cold. Probably a good idea to get them out of the ground before it freezes solid. It makes it a lot harder to pull them then. Some people get around that by putting like sections of hay or heavy mulch over it, so the ground keeps from freezing longer. And so, you don't really have to store your carrots until the ground is threatening to freeze, because you can store them right in the ground. So that's a little bit about that. I wanted to kind of share a little bit about the importance of carrots to Michigan. As you can see, 125.8 million pounds of carrots. It's a lot of carrots. In Michigan, most of the carrots that are grown here are processed into canned or frozen products, and the rest are usually grown for market, fresh farmers markets, etc. Michigan is fourth in the nation for the production of carrots. Most of the bulk of them are grown in central western Michigan. I grew up over there, and I remember, well, I still do when I go back, there's what they call muck farms or muck soils. It's a really deep, dark soil that is really good for growing celery, onions, lettuce, and it's really nutritious soil. And so those are some of the places where they grow the most beautiful carrots. And a cover crop is usually grown in the fall and winter, because maintaining those muck soils is very, there's a lot to it. It's not conducive to just spraying on some fertilizer growing. They have to actually be maintained by cover crops and keeping the organic matter really high in that soil. So as most of us know, carrots are a low calorie, high vitamin count crop. So it's a nutritious, super nutritious vegetable. And we also, the opportunities for presentations that some of you might consider to do around the One Seed, One State. You can do a presentation on growing root vegetables. You can teach, you know, saving seed from biennial plants, or saving seeds in general is always a great library program for a seed library. You can talk to people about succession planning and extending the season. As I mentioned, you can harvest carrots right until the ground freezes solid here. So you can plant them later in the summer and keep harvesting them until you can't anymore. If you leave them in the ground, they'll come back in the spring, and you can save seed from them. You can talk about ways to eat carrots. Cooking programs at my library are very popular. And again, preserving, canning, pickling, fermenting. There's tons of different ways. I love fermented carrots. You throw a little hot pepper and dill in there, and yum, yum, yum. So there's lots of ways that people might not have thought about, and you can have a program about that. Storage, you can talk about how to store carrots in a refrigerator and a root cellar, storing them in the ground. It's a great, very few children don't like carrots. Some do, some don't like anything, but carrots are pretty well loved by children. As you can see in the illustration I have at the right, it's a young man showing kids carrots, and that's actually a picture from the White House garden back in a few years ago, when it was kind of a priority in the White House to talk about fresh food and everything. So that is exactly what's going on there. Young children are getting to see carrots and their how they're growing and how they're harvested. You could talk about container gardening. Some people don't have a garden, or don't have gardens where they don't have room to garden, or they have big trees that are kind of encroaching on their sunny areas of their yard. So you can talk about growing vegetables in containers. You can also talk about critter control, because not only children and adults love carrots, but so do a lot of other creatures. So you can talk about how to control rabbits and other things that really want to share your crop with you that you work so hard on. So how to participate. You can register for One Seed, One State. Registration is not open yet. We typically do that in January. Each library receives the same amount of seeds, and if you've registered, then and when your seeds are shipped out, we usually use Melcat library delivery, or our local library interloan mail are the primary ways, because they're free to us to use. There's a handful of people every year that we have to mail the seeds to, but it gets expensive. So we hope that most people can arrange, even if they aren't at a library. Some of you make arrangements with your local library to have the seeds sent there. So we send out files for the poster, the brochures, the instructions, the seed packet labels, everything you need to print out and use for promoting the program. You can buy or make your seed packets, depending on, I guess making them is okay if you're in a really rural area and don't expect a lot of participants, but most people end up buying the coin packets. The number 3 coin packets fit our labels just right. Another question we get a lot is when to put out the One Seed, One State display, and we suggest April 1st. You certainly, again, you have the autonomy to put it out sooner if you want to. Some people already start their programming about the seed library early, or have seed swaps, or seed packaging parties, or seed programming. So if you want to put it out earlier, that's fine. I find that putting it out closer to the planting time works a little better. People take the seeds, they don't forget they have them. It's a little fresher on their mind. You can, depending on weather, and of course, again, Michigan ranges from, zone 6 up to in the Upper Peninsula, they might still be thawing out when we're planting down here in the lower part of the state. So probably mid to late April or May for the northern states is when you can plant carrots. They're pretty hardy. They'd enjoy growing in cool weather. So it's really a good idea to get them in at least by early May so they can put on a lot of their growth in the cooler temperatures before summer hits hard. So that's our, I'm gonna unshare my screen and go back to this. So I hope you enjoy providing the carrots to your patrons this year. Let's see.
I'm going to jump in real quick, Pam,
Yeah,
if
please
that's
do.
okay. First, I want to say I love the slide about the program opportunities that folks could build around the carrots. I think that that's so important to consider the different ways that we can approach these topics. You know, we could, from the gardening standpoint to the seed saving standpoint or the edible standpoint. I think that that's really, really important to be able to see that there's so many different programs that librarians could be offering around something as simple as growing carrots, you know, and to have that engagement with your community throughout the year, right? At the beginning, when they're getting the seeds, later, maybe when they're saving seeds, when they're harvesting, what to do with the harvest, staying engaged with the community throughout the growing season is so important, not only to maybe get some of those seeds back, but just to help people learn to grow and make the most of the seeds. So I really like that. And if we had a minute, I was wondering if there was any folks here today that have participated in One Seed, One State in the past that would maybe like to share a little bit of their experience, some things that they loved, some things they might like to see us improve, any sort of feedback or anything like that from anybody that's here today would be really, really nice to hear. If you wanted to drop it in the chat or on mute and say something, whatever makes you the most comfortable.
Yeah, we're fine with somebody unmuting if they have a comment right now before we go on to something else. I'll slug my coffee.
Don't be shy, folks.
That's
If
okay
you're
if you don't, nematodes and carrots. What do you think, Ben?
Well, I know a lot of folks like to grow marigolds in their gardens to help with nematodes, so that would be the first thing that I would suggest.
Now, is that the African marigolds that we're familiar with that you can get at the garden center?
Those are the ones.
Okay. There's other marigolds. There's Mexican ones.
That's true. That's true. And you know, the pot marigold, the calendula, a lot of
Yeah.
folks, I see a lot of confusion there. So no, you're absolutely right. Yeah, the African marigolds would be the ones that I would suggest growing. And they have the added bonus of looking really pretty alongside carrots. I think as far as companion planting goes, they might work together well, but they also look really nice in the garden too.
And it would probably be a good idea not to get a giant variety, that's 3 feet tall that might overwhelm your carrots. There's lots. One thing cool about marigolds is you can get them 6, 7, 8 inches all the way up to 3, 4 feet tall. So, looking into a dwarf variety to plant near your carrots probably would be a good idea. So somebody asked how many seeds you suggest per packet. The dill went so fast. Well, that's a bit of a judgment call, I guess. If you have a lot of libraries, just sometimes a pinch, especially with carrot seeds, they're so tiny that a pinch is probably going to be 40. So you can. What do you think, Ben? I mean, if you have a very small participation and you're only giving out a dozen or so packets, you're going to be able to put more in them. But if you have a lot of people, and some libraries have gone so far as to go and buy, extra seed if they feel like it's either a seed or a library where there's branches, they'll buy a pound of seed and kind of, so that they can meet their needs. We are lucky to get a certain amount of seeds out to everybody that participates, but that is an option to buy little finger carrot seeds from another company. True Leaf Seed Company does offer them in both organic and conventional seed. We've found them to be fairly, compared to some other companies, fairly inexpensive. but yeah, and as Jody mentions, they supplement with seed they buy. And as I do that at my library as well, I generally end up buying a pound or so of whatever it is. So I've got, and then I also have it left for 2 or 3 years. Carrot seed, I think, is good for at least probably 3 years, don't you think, Ben?
I would agree. And I'm going to agree with everything that you're saying because it's so hard to determine how many seeds are the appropriate amount. So it really depends on the size of your community, the demand for the seed. There's a lot of variables there. So each community kind of has to choose what's right for them. But just enough to get started. It doesn't have to be enough to feed them in carrots for the whole year. That's an important thing, to consider. Like Jody here says they use a quarter teaspoon for carrot seeds, and that's a pretty good amount. It's not going to get into your supply too heavy, but it's a good amount of carrot seed to get somebody started so they can have the experience and eat some and maybe try to leave some behind to overwinter to get seed from so they can practice that. So that seems like a pretty reasonable amount.
Yeah, and that's true for seed libraries in general. You're you're providing them, especially with easy to save seeds, you're providing them with a start. You're giving them enough seeds so they can grow and maybe save some seeds, and return a few to the seed library, keep some for themselves. Kind of nudging them toward a little bit of self-sufficiency. You know, have them think about, and I know the culture of a seed library. Some people take them really seriously and the seed saving, the seed sharing, and frankly, there's other people that it's like free seeds and they don't think anything beyond that. They don't think about saving or sharing or anything else, and that's just par for the course. You're going to get all kinds. Um, but generally, like Ben said, we're not trying to feed their whole family for a year. We're just giving them something to try. And some people don't need a lot of seeds too. If they're just planting a pot of them, for their kids or, to put in a sunny area in their driveway or something. So um, we have um, Jody says, perfect amount for container garden. Yeah, and teachers, there are people or teachers that have seed libraries too, and they have a particular challenge because their students aren't there possibly for 3 months or so or 2 months, and so they kind of have to run their program around the school schedule. And a lot of kids don't, they may have a balcony in a apartment, or they may just, like I said, they may just have the only sun is in their driveway. So having a pot that they can put somewhere sunny in their garden and grow something of their own is really cool. Yeah, it says we split commercial packets into thirds. Lake says this. We split commercial packets into thirds. You can check a commercial packet of seeds and estimate a measurement in teaspoons or pinches. Um, I bought this set of, actually I bought a dozen of them for our seed packaging parties, but they're a little set of spoons where, they're all less than like a half teaspoon. There's one that says it's a smidgen, and one's a pinch, and one's a this, and they're tiny little seeds, and those are really great for dividing up the little tiny seeds. But I'd say a good pinch in each packet is enough, because if you do an experiment, put a pinch of carrots in the palm of your hand and count them, there's going to be quite a few there. And it also encourages people not to plant too thickly. It's easy to plant carrots so thickly, and if they don't thin them, there's a lot of skills involved, and they're elementary skills basically in gardening, but there's still skills a lot of people don't have, and you can't assume that they have them. So being pretty clear, and we try to do that in the brochure, be very clear about how many to plant, and how to plant them and how to thin them. So there's some skills coming into play with the carrots that we haven't worked on before. So I'm kind of hoping we as a state and as a group are ready to take this next step into a biennial plant. Somebody said, does a listserv exist? It's not a listserv. I on the Michigan Seed Library Network webpage, I do have a just a, I don't know, a crude database, basically a table where I listed everybody that I know of that did programming. Um, and so that's one option, and I'm always looking for more people to add to that database. And some people leave. Doing library programs is something that some people will do for a while, and then they kind of like, no, I'm over that. So sometimes you go to call a presenter and they're not doing it anymore. So I've tried to keep that list as updated as I can. uh, but your next point about sharing programming ideas, presenter suggestions, handouts, etc., is exactly what I have on my list to talk about today. When we get to the library profile survey results. Um, I think that was a great idea. And especially in library land, nobody should have to reinvent the wheel all the time. And especially libraries who are budget constrained. They only, they don't have a lot of people helping. So, there's lots of ways we can help each other. Oh, don't worry about jumping the gun. I think you're just, you're very um, in sync with what we're kind of want to do as a group here in Michigan. Um, so, any other comments or suggestions? Well, it is a big one. Let's look at
Yeah,
the,
you
yeah.
read that one real, and I'm going to say this just while you're
Okay,
reading
you
that to
talk while I'm
yourself.
reading.
I think that the questions about the amount of seeds to put in the pack, it made me think of another thing that I think is a resource, practice that could be valuable to libraries outside of just the one seed, one state, and that's just keeping accurate records. And I think a lot of libraries already do this, keeping track of how many seeds are coming in, what kind of seeds are going out. So then in future years, you can see where the demand is at, how many people are checking out seeds, and that sort of thing. So doing the same thing with the carrot seeds per se, like, how many seeds are going in these packets? How many packets could I make? How fast did they go? And then in future years, then you'd be able to adjust accordingly. Of course, hopefully the seed library grows and participation grows, but just to give you some sort of a jumping off point for understanding the demand in the community, for these seeds as well as the other seeds that you're offering, I think is very important to do.
Yeah. Well, we've got Kaylin's, uh, I think it's Kaylin. The question is about encouraging people. Basically, I'm paraphrasing, but success stories about how you optimize seed return. Right now is a really great time to think about that, because even if you haven't, you or your patrons haven't managed to gather many seeds, this is a perfect time of year to go out and find your native seeds. This is, look for those milkweed pods that are turning brown. We'll look for the if you have, a lot of libraries now have wildflower gardens or native gardens, or somewhere in their area has a native garden, and you can ask for permission to harvest seeds from there. We've got and just in our library, we've got penstemon, purple coneflower, uh, uh, honestly, my brain, um, Black-eyed Susans. We'll go for that. I was going to go for a more scientific name. Got the columbine, the native columbine, uh, um, Veronica. So there's a lot of, I can just walk out the door and harvest those seeds and have them for the seed library. Now, most of the time for native seeds, again, comes an opportunity for education. A lot of native seeds need to be stratified, or they need a cold, that's another word for needing a cold period before they will germinate. So you can plant them in the fall, or you can do a winter sowing. That's a whole nother subject, but you can Google it, and there's tons of pictures about winter sowing. So those are all great program ideas you can do starting in December or January, because most of these seeds, you need to have them in their cold dormant period by the end of December or January, so that they'll germinate on time. So, and all seeds are different. It's good to have a really good book. There, there's, Bevan has got some books out. A book that I got right at the beginning of this whole seed library thing is called this. I think I might have a. Hold on, I'm going to share. Hold on. Oh, never mind. Honestly,
The Seed Garden.
yeah, that's what it's called. Thank you.
Sure, that's from Seed Savers Exchange. And when I recommend books, even though I've got a seed saving book, I find myself actually recommending that book more
Yeah,
often. It's so comprehensive. It's fantastic. They're actually doing Seed Savers Exchange has a multi-class seed saving digital online thing that they're doing right now, and they're using it as the textbook for the course. Um, it's fantastic. So I
and it's
recommend that to
easy to
everybody.
read and easy to use too.
It really is. It's loaded with info, but it is so accessible. Yeah, it's a fantastic book for sure.
Yeah, and it's I went to get our copy off the shelf and it's checked out, which is a good thing. I should have brought I do have a copy of my own at home, because one of the joys of working in the library is you can order books, and then if you really love them, you can buy them yourself. But that is one. If I could only have one seed saving, seed starting book, I guess, because that one is quite comprehensive and easy to understand. But it's called A Seed Garden.
Here it is.
There it is. You've got your copy. Great.
I got right here on the shelf behind me.
Yep. Well, that's where mine is too, but it's at home.
I want to jump in here real quick
Yeah.
to touch on Kaylin's question more
Yeah.
because I think it's a really important thing to talk about. So the way I interpreted this question is how to operationalize seed return during gathering season. So I think that there's two things to think about. One is, of course, we cannot gauge the success of our seed libraries based on returns because that is such a difficult thing to accomplish. But I think that if we wanted to increase returns, harness the power of human attention on sharing and growing seed for return. I think that that needs to be a very intentional thing from the beginning of the season. So this would be built around programming. So at the beginning of the spring, when folks are just opening the seed library and folks are coming in to check out their seeds, right there, start that conversation with folks that we want you to save these seeds. And this is how you can, as you're planning your garden and planting your garden, think about seeds and really help to set that intention and keep in touch with them through the season as we're doing that. I find that really people all think about seed saving in the fall, but to be a successful seed saver in the fall, we need to think about seed saving all year long, right? So connecting with the community throughout the year, I think is very important. Finding just a handful of folks in your community that are saving seeds and kind of adopting them. Really lean on those folks and say, "Hey, I need you to be a shining example for the rest of the community. Bring some seeds and let people see it happening. Be willing to answer questions." I think that helping people from the very beginning of their participation to see the ultimate goal here, the ending, the end game of what we're trying to do is going to help them do that. And like Pam said, some folks, they just want free seeds. They just want to grow. They're just learning how to grow a garden, let alone save seeds. So not everybody's going to be able to do it. But if we can be intentional with folks right off of the top, I think that that's going to increase our odds of success. For the second half of this question, about interfacing with tribal communities. Oh, absolutely. That's possibly one of the most important things that we could do, to respect the land that we are on and the people that were here before us and the seeds that they've grown, especially since we are growing many of those seeds. It's happening, right? So I think same thing, programming. Programming is going to be the answer to most everything that we can find success with the seed library. Let's find some indigenous seed savers in your community and invite them to come and speak to the community. Have them come to do a program at the seed library to talk about the significant role that seeds play for their communities so people can see to respect seeds in a way more than just an ingredient or an input in the garden, but to see the real impact that seeds have. Hearing it from those voices is very, very important. So that's a great thing to ask about and to have this conversation so we're all on the same page how important that is to include these indigenous communities in the conversation and have them come to your library and have them give a talk. I think that's awesome to do that. I think that it's right up there with some of the most important programs that we could offer.
Yeah, I agree. I think I try to do that fairly early in the year. seed starting, seed saving, all of that has to be thought about in January and February for those who are thinking about programming. But I do a program just called planning the seed savers garden, because you don't want to plant a bunch of hybrid carrots and then find out you shouldn't save seeds from those. So it's just learning the basics about what's an open pollinated seed. But yeah, thinking ahead and getting your seed library users to think ahead to what am I, what am I putting in the ground that I can save seeds from later? You don't want to wait till it's seed saving time and realize, well, or that it's something that's so difficult to save seeds from. And frankly, my seed library gets very few biennial seeds. I'm hoping to break through that barrier with trying this little carrot this year. But we don't get a lot of beet seeds. We don't get a lot of carrot seeds donated and things like that. So it's kind of, I would like to see that more of that. But conversely, like Ben said, sometime, at some point a few years ago, we pivoted from obsessing over how many plants or seeds are returned every year and started to think more in line of education um and that, and not really judge the success of our seed library on how many are returned. um so now I did want to touch on, before we move on, too, Lake said that they were advised by guidelines from MSU not to accept saved seeds from the public. Um, I will just speak off the cuff here about that. Um, Getting seed diseases from plants that you get seed from the public. We always ask that the public, it's probably another important thing to stress when you're doing education about seed saving, don't save seeds from something that's obviously a diseased plant. You only want to save seeds from the healthiest plants, from the healthiest looking fruit from the healthiest plants. We'd rather, but it goes beyond just blanketly saying we're not going to accept any seeds from the public. Kind of this, stake to the heart of the whole seed saving movement, I guess. So MSU has a lot of guidelines. And they do great work. Don't get me wrong. I rely on MSU. I think that they do fabulous work. They have tons of stuff online, but they are skewed more toward conventional gardening and conventional crop raising. There's a lot of talk about herbicides and pesticides, and those are guidelines that I choose not to accept because I'm tailoring what I learned from them toward my personal garden or my personal seed library. And you can do the same. You're certainly welcome to go by guidelines like that and just use purchase seed. That's a choice, a viable choice that any seed library can make. But if you're truly looking to encourage seed saving and seed sharing in your community, you just have to make decisions like that. There's a lot of decisions to make when you have a seed library, and that's one of them, whether you're going to accept seeds from the public. Do you have anything to add to that before we move on?
No, I think that was a very comprehensive answer. I think you checked it all for me. I feel good about that. There's a little bit more of a conversation going on here in the chat that we probably don't have time to dig into here. But Julia dropped a nice link in there for folks to check out. You had referenced already on the Michigan Seed Library Network website that there's a place where you've started to develop a database of presenters and such, which might answer one of these questions. And we also have a Facebook group, a Michigan Seed Library's Facebook group, where everyone is welcome to, if they wanted to share ideas or presenters that they've enjoyed, or they're looking for presenters, or they've got handouts they want to share. Utilizing that Facebook group is also maybe a nice option for continuing conversations like this outside of the summit. I'll try to track that link down and drop it into chat here. Um, Most certainly. But I think that according to our agenda, we probably should keep
Yep.
ticking along here. We don't want to keep folks waiting. So should we, you make the call? Do you want to do the next thing or should we get right into
No, we're
Julia at
gonna
one
we're gonna
o'clock?
go right to Julia because I think that my thing is a little bit long to if Julia needs to go on to other things, then we should have her start next.
Fantastic. I'll say a little bit about
Yeah,
Julia
please do.
while she gets herself ready. I first met Julia. If you don't know Julia yet, you will hear of her soon enough, if not even from today, because she is certainly a mover and shaker in the world of seeds. I met Julia originally at the National Heirloom Expo, possibly last year, for the first time. So that was really cool for me to have an opportunity to finally put a face to the name. Julia and her organization, Going to Seed, are doing some fantastic work. Really, the mission, and I don't want to speak for her, but my interpretation of the mission is the promotion of food security via seed diversity, right? Ensuring seed diversity to make sure that we have food for a changing climate. And I think that that's really awesome and important work. So I think that she's going to bring some interesting perspectives about diversity to the seed library point of view. So I'm really excited to have her here. It's really exciting to have her here. So, Julia, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. We're all so excited to learn from you.
Thank you. And I've really enjoyed this presentation so far. You guys have an awesome organization here, and I'm hope it's inspirational. Can California create a seed library network like Michigan's? So I'm going to share my screen, and I have a little slideshow here for you guys. So local seeds for local food, the benefits of diversity in seed libraries. And this has come up a few times in the chat, and this optimizing seed returns, increasing seed return rates. And it's something that I've really delved deep into the last few months and the last year. So I think this is relevant to your conversation so far, and a new perspective. So a little bit about me and where I'm coming from, right? Seed is the source of life and the first link in the food chain. Control over seed means control over our lives. And I do this work with Going to Seed mostly, and Nourishing Seeds is a local seed library that we've started and that I'm part of that works with the local Indigenous community, and then the Seed Library Network. I've been helping out with their census and their other projects, and then my local county seed libraries. So as part of the Seed Library Network project, the census, they gathered a lot of data. And this is the result for this is the result for the national local seed return rates, right? The question was, what volume of the seeds that you offer is locally grown? And this was from 913 responses. Not an international, there was different languages, different sheets. So these were the English responses. And here you can see in the red, it's 45% of the responses save less than 25% local seed. So the question, the answer was 1 to 25% is local seed. And then in the blue, only commercial seeds, 11.5% only have commercial seeds. So I thought this was an interesting overview of where we're at in this country. You can see in the purple is 76 to 100% have almost all local seeds or all local seeds. So we want to know about Michigan, right? How does it compare? And here, I don't know if you guys are okay, here you can see Michigan, right? So it's very similar. So for the red, what percentage of local seeds is 49%, so a little bit more, and then only commercial seeds is 25%. And here, very similar number for the only local seeds is in the orange, 26 to 100%. Is that clear? Did I explain this graph properly, just for a landscape overview of where we're at? And so this is another example from the Spanish-speaking sheet, the form responses. There are about 100 responses, and it's very different. So here you have 78% are almost all local seeds or all local seeds. And then there's actually no category for no responses had only commercial seeds. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And I look forward to digging deeper into that data to, show country specific and how does the US compare overall internationally to this question of how many seed libraries have local seeds. And so why the question might be, you guys have a pretty good answer to this. And I heard Bevan in the beginning talking about the importance of local seeds and local seed saving and seed libraries. Why would we want them? And so I would love for you guys to pop in the chat. What do you think? What is important to you in your seed libraries and the values that you guys have? And maybe it's not. You could also answer, why isn't it important? So love those answers so I can include them in future presentations. And one thing that I get a lot in my community, we have a challenging climate of it's coastal, so it's cool summers. And people say, I love these seeds because I know they will grow here. Higher success rate for gardeners, which is really important considering there's something like a 40% national failure rate for new gardeners. And plants adapt, right? Over time, they get more resistant to those local pests and other challenges because people are saving those non-disease seeds, those seeds from healthy plants. And we can increase seed diversity. If we're all saving seeds, whether it's heirloom seeds or population varieties, we can have more varieties, more of everything. And then, of course, reducing dependence on multinational seed companies, and that's not just for the seeds themselves, but also sometimes we have to buy more products for seeds that aren't local because they require more. And I can't see the chat, but are there anybody want to read out any responses there if there are any? Okay, I'll read them later.
Yeah, so far it says what is important to me is that there are seeds we can. Oh, no, hold on, it flipped. That there are seeds we can no longer get from seed companies. So yeah, things that are as we well know, lots of seed varieties have been lost. Another person said, I think it's important because many local ones were raised by our relatives and others. I'm sorry,
Yeah, so many reasons, and all seeds used to be local, even not that long ago, 100 years ago, right? Each region had their own seeds that were adapted to their own climates and challenges, and there was so much diversity, and that was a main reason for the loss is the commercialization of all those sort of gardener saved seeds everywhere. And then I have some answers here for why don't people, if it's so good, why is it so hard to get people to return seeds? Why aren't they doing it? There's, I guess, two questions in that. Why aren't they doing it? And why aren't they bringing seeds back to the seed library? And so some answers that we got through surveys, going to Seed Library Network, we're just asking everybody, why aren't you saving local seeds? And a lot of people are afraid of messing up. So they have been told that they absolutely cannot let anything cross-pollinate or they shouldn't grow it. The squash will be bitter. There are so many reasons why people have this anxiety for saving seeds that it's really kind of interesting. I don't have it as much, but I've heard it so many times, right? And you guys don't forget to pop in the chat why have you heard that people aren't saving local seeds or contributing to their local seed library? So other reasons are technical. They can't achieve minimum population sizes. And if so the recommendation for, say, buttercup squash or butternut squash is 25 plants of one variety is the minimum population size to maintain seed quality. And home gardeners don't want to do that. They don't want to grow 25 plants of one variety. It's just not how they want to garden. And they can't achieve recommended isolation distances. So in a lot of the literature we get, those are more than gardeners can handle because they have neighbors, they're in urban areas, they might have different, varieties in their own garden. So they they can't achieve those mile or sometimes mile and a half distances that sometimes are recommended. And I do want to say that a lot of those recommendations are for commercial enterprises where they absolutely must maintain a heirloom variety 100%. But for gardeners who aren't selling their seeds on a large scale, that can be quite different. And then this too, right? We heard this from the Michigan, I think someone put it in the comment, the Michigan State University, don't accept seeds from the public. A lot of seed libraries don't accept potentially cross-pollinated seeds. And if they do, they're relegated to the bottom drawer where people, I've heard this at webinars, people who don't care can get those seeds because they are compromised quality and they're otherwise low quality. So that causes this anxiety. People don't want to submit seeds to a seed library because they're potentially cross-pollinated. So this keeps coming up. And then, all right, so a lot of problems, right? Let's get to the solutions here. And there is one solution that can potentially solve a lot of these problems. And that is this: embrace diversity, or at least embrace a little bit more diversity. So it's not just that we can accept it, it can go in the bottom drawer. It's like these potentially crossed winter squashes are, we don't want them. Like, let's think differently. We have to think differently if we're going to reverse some of these trends and encourage seed savers and let go of some of this anxiety. So this can mean different things to different people, and communities can set this themselves. Like, what does increasing diversity mean? It can mean just allowing varieties within a category. So different varieties of zucchini, we can mix those together and that's acceptable. Other communities might say, hey, we want to let all our summer squash mix together, the yellow and the green, or, it really is a question that it can be on the spectrum. So here you can see beautiful photos, and these mixes tend to be colorful and beautiful and delicious. So there are different words in different locations. One I didn't add here was landrace, population variety, farmer peasant varieties, or local varieties. And these tend to be much more common in countries outside of the US and Europe. And also, I don't want to say that this is the only way. If you adopt this, that you have to forget everything else. There's a spectrum, and it can be, maintaining most of your varieties as pure heirloom varieties, but saying, hey, we're going to introduce a local mix of tomatoes or corn, or whatever it is that your seed library might decide to do. And both are important, right? Sort of these seed savers from the last 10,000 years have developed and maintained and stewarded these really important heirloom varieties. I'm including Bevan as one of these, who's really done fantastic work on making sure that these varieties are still available. But there's room to say, hey, okay, we're gonna introduce some adaptation here, some diversity, and it's not either or. And here's an example on the right, my friends mixing or tasting different potatoes that they're mixing up. And a lot of us have lost our own ancestral varieties, our connection to our local varieties that did exist in the past in our areas. So it's a matter of recreating what's a local community mix that's really adapted to our challenges and selected by the community. And so one challenge for, especially in this country, someone like me, I could either adopt someone else's story, their heirloom, but that would mean oftentimes I have to change my climate so that it can grow, really struggle, take care of it, whereas a locally adapted variety thrives with the challenges that you have. And a little bit of botany. So my goal here was to convince you that increasing diversity can be beneficial in various ways. Now, here are a couple of reasons diversity is a benefit botanically. So we know this for hybrids, commercial hybrids, and certainly I don't believe in commercial hybrids. But they tend to be higher yielding and more disease resistant. And that is because when you take two parents that are very different and that are, even two heirlooms and cross them, you can, not always, but you can get this increase in not just size and yield, but also disease resistance and vigor. So this can be really important for plants to increase their diversity. Nature loves that. Nature loves wide cross-pollinations, and that can make plants stronger. And this is what that looks like in my own field. So this is two varieties of corn. The top one is an heirloom. And what I want to say is that in another place, especially where this was bred, it would have done fantastically. I have a challenging climate for corn. It is cold. And so it didn't do that well, but it would have done just fine somewhere else. And it looks like there are pollination issues here, but this was in the same field, in the middle of the patch where I had this corn, the other more diverse corn was fully pollinated. So this is what a little bit of inbreeding depression can look like when it's faced with a challenge. And for me, in my challenging environment, this corn is the only one that I can grow without a greenhouse. And I keep selecting for, the healthy cobs that thrive in my particular challenges. And then we can have this different mindset when we have diversity of going from, I mentioned this before, right? Adjusting the environment to suit the crop that we're buying from seeds that are from elsewhere, maybe a warmer climate. We need to provide them a better climate. To this picture on the right where you see multiple, they're all, the Peppos, the Hollis pumpkins. They're different varieties of all Hollis pumpkins. And some are doing great and some are not. So this is a healthy plant and I want to select those seeds. And over time, that means adapting genetically to the environment where you're growing instead of adapting every year the greenhouses or soil or whatever it is that you have to adapt to a commercial variety. And then this is what diversity can look like in the field, where some are doing just fine and some are getting yellow and are nutrient deficient and others are getting eaten by bugs. So this is my diverse population of beans that over time is adjusting to my challenges. So the benefits to gardeners in increasing diversity, fewer rules to learn and ways to mess up, right? Less anxiety. It's okay if you get pollination or if you don't know, we want to put some limits on it, but in general, it's okay to not maintain a pure variety in the species that your community is choosing that it's okay, or the person is choosing. So they can focus more on community, flavor, and individual preferences than the rules and regulations that can be imposed on them. And more reliable for challenging climates. So we know biodiversity. Biodiversity is all the different species growing together, right? That becomes a more reliable harvest because if some doesn't do well, that your other ones will do well. Well, the same applies for diversity within a species. So when you have a genetic diversity, you have some that will succumb to an early frost and some that won't. So it can be more reliable when you have those increasingly common freak weather events and climate change. And just one more word on this minimum population size. I think I said that. So we said that, right, 25 buttercups is the recommended size when you're maintaining an heirloom for avoiding inbreeding depression. And when you have a diverse population that looks more like this one on the right, you can have two plants and you're achieving this sufficient genetic diversity. I mean, the more the better, because you want to be able to select your healthy plants, but for this particular problem, you need much fewer plants. So that's why when I talk to gardeners who have avoided seed saving because of this reason, they're like, oh man, so much easier. Okay, so you guys are mostly seed librarians, so let's talk about benefits to seed libraries. More contributed seeds can be welcomed. So for us, that has been a big deal, both in the various organizations I'm part of, going to seed and my local project, Nourishing Seeds. We ask a few questions, but we don't want crosses between summer squash and winter squash, for example, or we don't want crosses between flower corn and sweet corn, hot peppers and sweet peppers, and later we'll go into that. But within those types, we're encouraging more submissions that are crossed. And to have less separated inventory. So instead of 15 different varieties of Maxima squash, you can choose the most important ones that you want to keep separate as heirlooms that your community likes, kabocha, or red curry, and then other ones that are all within a category of delicious roaster squash can be a winter squash mix that's local and adapted and delicious. And then this has become a thing that I've realized lately is gardeners can't buy these mixes. So it's, for some people, it's about that sort of adventure. What am I going to get? What can I choose? This becoming connected with your seeds and your population, where you don't really can't control everything. And for some people, that's really great and something that they can buy. So I want to give you a few examples, and then we'll go into questions. Internationally, there's a much bigger movement towards these mixes. And I was recently in France at the International Farmer Seed Conference, and I met a lot of organizations and breeders and just people growing food that grew in this way already. So this is a project in the UK, part of the Gaia Foundation on the left. And then on the right, Oxfam is working on this, teaching people to grow and adapt and increase diversity. And then this is Kay Everett's a seed library called Seeds for Sharing in near Portland. And this is her second year. So she's offering 4 different species now, where people can pick up diverse seeds, select the ones that do the best in their garden, and then bring seeds back that are crossed. And so she chose to accept only 4, or maybe more, but 4 is part of her program. And then she combines with that monthly emails about those particular crops and tasting events where the community can come together. And this last year, this was a Maxima winter squash tasting event where it's like the community can decide, what do we like the most? And this is Nourishing Seeds, is a project in California that I'm a part of. And this is a collaboration with this Hakakadile, a local Pomo nonprofit, and Going to Seed, where it's really about changing the culture towards taking control of our local seeds and in our environment. And then we have connections with Bay Area seed libraries who are doing that too. Rebecca Newbern, who I think you'll hear from next, is part of one of those projects. All right, so for you guys, you get a lovingly contributed, sorry, typo here, lovingly contributed homegrown contribution of unknown parentage. And any one of these species. So if you decide to adopt some of these for certain things, now what do you do? In the past, it might be relegate to a bottom drawer that no one will ever look at again, toss it in the compost, or whatever it is that people might have been told to do, learned to do. And this is our solution. I'm part of a few different projects that do this, but these are labels where you can see an example. So carrots, colorful mix from several gardeners, clearly labeled. This is not an heirloom variety. And the photo and the description, everything should make it clear to people that this is not exactly what they're used to. This mix of tomatoes contributed by gardeners all over the country, and peppers. And so really, again, it's individual based on community. What do you want to, have all tomatoes in one, like cherry, currant, salad, slicer, large tomatoes in one mix, or separate, like this is a cherry mix, this is a slicer mix. These are the golden cherry, those are all very flexible decisions to make. And a question that I had going into this, especially my local project, is are people going to want these seeds? What if we collect all these seeds and nobody wants them? We're going to be left with this. So it's been long enough that I can say that people have really embraced them. And I'm in California, that is true, and but all over the place. So I went on this tour of seed exchanges, and we went to seed exchanges, Humboldt County, Bay Area, Eco Farm, and then even Bakersfield. And I was giving talks and doing seed exchanges and just participating in other seed projects. And I would always bring seeds and talk to everybody. And there was something like one objection, but honestly, I expected a lot more. Most people were like, yes, they're local seeds. I want them. I know they'll grow here. And so in this local project, in our first year, people took 7,000 packets. So that was a lot of seed packing for a new group, and I expect it will be more this coming year. And another example is Going to Seeds project, and you can check this out, the real life page. If you go to goingtoseed.org, and one of the tab is seeds, and they've sold out fairly quickly within a couple of months each year. So that tells us that there's demand, and we could send out a lot more seeds than we have so far. And our seed program is growing, and it's all local seeds. So we're limited by the amount of people participating in this and the number of seeds they send in. So I suggest not obviously going full 100% local seeds like I've done elsewhere, but saying, hey, we're going to try this, kind of like Kay's done, and we're going to choose something that we think people will, accept a mix for. Maybe they're already used to it, like this sweet corn, sort of we're used to colorful corn, or a mix of local beans, and really embrace it and not say this is potentially crossed. And yeah, the way that you often hear of potentially cross-pollinated seeds. And so so mixes to avoid, I mentioned this, but sweet corn and flour corn, popcorn, you can make as many mixes as are within a species as are important to your community. Squash. So we hear a lot about bitter squash as a reason not to save seeds. Well, as far as I know, and Bevan, you can jump in here. The bitter gene is associated with the decorative gourds. And so in the past, when, delicatas, there was a sort of scandal of bitter delicatas, the commercial seeds, those were crossed with a bitter gourd. And so if you can learn your squash species, and there are 3 that we commonly have in seed libraries and gardens that don't cross with each other. That helps a lot. And just we say to every single one of our members, don't grow bitter gourds, don't have them anywhere near your garden. Those decorative gourds, they're not edible. There's plenty of beautiful decorative squash that are delicious. Like, grow those. And the Maximas don't have bitter genes. We're growing varieties that have been domesticated for many, many years. So this is needs a little bit of education in the squash section, but it's navigable. And then peppers, nobody wants a hot pepper that is supposed to be a sweet pepper. So that's really important too. And then anything that doesn't taste good, right? We don't want those in our mixes. And carrots, for people that have Queen Anne's lace around their gardens, we don't necessarily want those carrots. But especially for some of these, the potential crosses like Queen Anne's lace with carrots, it's not the end of the world. It can be selected out. For some of those other ones, they matter more. So there's more, there's plenty more of these examples, but these are main ones. And I'll be happy to answer any questions if there's time on more things to consider in your seed library. And this is kind of a new project of scaling this model where we can support seed libraries, Going to Seed can, in implementing some of this, and also implementing the emails, the supportive emails on how do you do this. We've produced an online course, which you can totally take, but we've learned that people want small bits of information when they need it. And so delivering that in a way that is helpful for gardeners and seed savers is one of our goals with this project. And we love working with the Seed Library Network, and we look forward to supporting more seed libraries. So I would love to be in contact with any of you that are considering doing this. Just email me, julia@goingtoseed.org, and I'll put it in the chat right after this. And looking forward to continuing that conversation.
Thank you so much, Julia. That was fantastic. So, folks, yeah, go ahead and put some questions if you have any questions for Julia down in the chat box so she can get to them. She's going to put her links down there as well so you can follow through. I do want to say a couple of things while we wait for some folks to drop their questions in. One, love the presentation. Two, can totally relate to it. So a couple of stories that I would tell real quick. We started growing Seminole pumpkins here at Small House, and Seminole pumpkin is a very diverse landrace from Florida, and it's from the Seminole people. It's kind of grown wild. It's really adapted to that area. It's very, very diverse if you've ever grown it. And we brought it up here to Michigan, which was a very different climate for it. And well, the first year, most of the plants did not do well for me, but some of them did do well. And those were the ones that we obviously saved our seeds from. And that plant has continued to adapt to my climate. And the reason that it was so possible to do so, of course, while all plants want to adapt, this one started with an incredible amount of diversity because it was a mix, because that's the way that they grow things indigenously. So it did really well for me. So that's like a real life example for me of seeing this in action. I've also visited a couple of seed libraries where they've had drawers where they have local mixes available. One that stands out to me was a gentleman who had some tomatoes that had cross-pollinated or whatever happened to him, and he didn't know, but he brought them into the library in case anybody wanted them, and it was the most popular tomato that year. Folks were really excited to get to grow it because it was so different from anything they'd ever seen before. So they grew these tomatoes, and since it was a local adaptation, it did really well. It was very popular. He was like a little local hero, because he had this new tomato that had popped up in his garden. So as far as that, I see the excitement in communities like you mentioned, Julia. But what I love the most about what you said is that it helps everybody be a little bit more relaxed. Just relax a little bit. So a lot of people are so nervous about saving seeds because they don't know how to do it. So they're worried, like you said, that they're going to mess it up. They're going to bring something into the library that people can't have or whatever. And this approach of yours really helps people be more relaxed about seeds, replicating what Mother Nature does. And that's really, really cool. So obviously, I think that's awesome because we're getting people saving seeds, and that's the most important thing to do. So please, folks, if you got some questions for Julia, drop them in the chat. We still got a couple of minutes. I'm sure you've got to have some questions.
There's a comment here about climate change, to get the community together and become self-sufficient to face climate changes. So I didn't address that, but it's similar. So when you're adapting to, by increasing diversity and saving seeds every year from the healthiest plants, you're adapting to where you are, but you're also adapting to the climate as it changes. And yes, as Bevan says, all plants can adapt. It's just the speed of adaptation can be quicker when you have those diverse populations.
More to work with. All right.
That's right. And also, one thing that I care about is nutrient density, because I've studied it and I realize how the differences are giant between like one carrot and another carrot can be 200 times difference. And so when I cut them open and I see, those dark colors, I prioritize saving seeds from really dark, delicious, and that is nutrient density and colorful. And then another thing that, Joseph Lofthouse, who wrote Landrace Gardening, which you like this topic, I recommend that book. He just loves lots of different colors and all the colors together. So it's really individual.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Julia, thank you so much. Everybody follow the link, follow the email if you want to follow up with her. Online course, totally check it out. Building some programming around this topic is obviously another great idea. Like Julia mentioned, there's certainly an educational component to this as well. So having that as an opportunity to engage with the community and build that programming is, that's paramount to keeping this movement moving forward. So that's awesome, Julia. Thank you so much. Now we got Rebecca is actually going to be coming up next. Pam, do you have anything you want to add before we get into learning from Rebecca today?
Um, Well, first, I want to thank Julia and Rebecca both for agreeing to speak with us. They're both doing such great work. California and Michigan have a little bit in common in the fact that the northern part of the state and the southern part of the state are almost different, different climates. There's a lot of difference between where Julia lives and growing seeds in San Diego. So they, a statewide thing like what we're doing is we have to be very inclusive of everyone. But thanks a lot, Julia. And yes, let's let Rebecca take over from here and talk about her important work.
Awesome. Hi, welcome,
Hi.
welcome. Nice to see you both. It's been a while, feels like it. Yeah, so I am Rebecca Newbern. I am with the Seed Library Network, and I want to talk a little bit about the network and what we offer, as well as just how people can get engaged. And obviously, love the work that Julia is doing. She's a big part of our organizing committee, and as she mentioned, in Richmond, and I founded the Richmond Grows Seed Lending Library. We're doing a partnership with a couple of local organizations, doing a grow out of diverse seeds, and then we come together in the fall and we do a harvest festival. So we're really excited, but this is our second year doing that as a community here. So it's been amazing and fun, and just the excitement around the local seeds and the colors. It's just been really fun to see people engage with that. So about the Seed Library Network, a little bit of history. I started Richmond Grows in 2010 and created just from the get-go, there was so much interest in the Bay Area around seed lending libraries that I started just kind of tracking different seed libraries that were popping up and created a list. And the list eventually over the last 10 years grew to 2,600 communities that were interested in having seed libraries. And we eventually realized that it was so, it needed to be updated. And so this past year in 2024, we decided to launch a census to go back in and actually create a map and get more information. Because at first it was just me collecting like, oh, where are they from? And I didn't really have much information besides the city and the state and country and an email address. And maybe the name of the seed library. Now we're getting more information about what, as Julia pointed out in her thing about, are people growing local seeds? Is that something they're important to? What are your particular needs? What resources do you have that you'd like to share? Because from the initial part of creating Richmond Grows, I created some initial resources, shared them out with the seed libraries that we're starting. And, the brochure that I made got sent back to me in Chinese, which was awesome because we were now able to share it with members of our community where we didn't have the capacity to do that, but a library that had a larger population of Chinese speakers had the capacity to get stuff translated. And so what's been a really nice part of the Seed Library Network from the beginning is the sharing of resources. And I love what you folks are doing in Michigan, where you come together and you highlight best practices, you talk about, where are their challenges, how can you meet those? And so that's just been, the Seed Library community from the get-go has been very generous in coming together to share resources and problem solve and figure out how we can kind of move forward together in our individual communities, but in the larger community. So I want to talk a little bit about the community. And oopsie, I am showing just part of my screen, I see. Let's see. How can I do this? Sorry. So first off, we have a website, and we're actually in the process of redoing our website. So I'll talk a little bit about our website that we've had for the last 14 years or so, the seedlibraries.net. And then I'll talk a little bit about the seedlibrarynetwork.org, which is our new website, and kind of the resources that are going to be showing up there, as well as how to navigate it. Because what I've noticed is there's so much on there that people don't even know what's on there. There's just, it's, buried underneath. And I was just like, oh yeah, well, the tomato tasting. And they're like, what, there's a tomato tasting? And I'm like, yeah, there's whole resources on how to, bring your community together to do that. And so hoping I can highlight some of the resources that are on there, as well as some of the new resources that are coming together. So really excited about some of the new things to share. And as I said, the list that we've had for the last 14 years is now converting to a map. So I'm hoping that we can get all of them. Michigan, I know you guys have your own map, but it's nice to kind of see where we all are in the world, as well as the thing that's about the census. If you want to take an extra couple minutes, you can tell us what resources you have, as well as any needs you have. And that helps us kind of focus our newsletter, which is the Cool Beans newsletter, on where are some of the needs that people have, as well as here are some of the cool resources that we can share out that might help support you and your community. And then another thing, some people aren't aware, we have a lot more people on the Cool Beans newsletter than we do have on the forum, but we actually have a forum, and you can access that from the seedlibraries.net homepage, and you can also access it from the homepage of Seed Libraries, seedlibrarynetwork.org. But we have a forum where you can post questions, or, like, share something cool that you're doing that you think might be a benefit to other people. And let's see. So just as I said, kind of we started in 2011, Richmond Grow started in 2010, and we kind of, it's really moved into quite an international movement. Our last summit, we were doing them annually, as I think Bevan and Pam, you both attended, right? The one in the Heirloom Expo in Santa Rosa. And we were doing those annually up until the pandemic, and then we moved online. And our last summit in 2023, so we had a little pause this year, had 2,200 participants from 35 countries. So it's really been amazing to see the engagement from people around the world on this concept of saving and sharing local seeds. So as I said, we have the seedlibraries.net website, and I'll put this stuff in the chat, but also I think you guys are sharing out the slideshow at the end, or
Yes.
are you sharing it? So,
Yeah.
okay. So the seedlibraries.net has just a wealth of resources. I will kind of go through a little bit of it. I know probably people that are here are probably somewhat already starting in the process. If they found you, they know that there are resources out there. So we have obviously a lot of start a seed library resources, return policies, recommended books, special things for school seed libraries. But what happens is once you get started, where do you go? How do you maintain? Because I think a lot of people, when they first get started, you get donations, but do you always want to maintain having to get donations? Or, is that going to be part of your budget? Or are you going to start moving into what are some programs that you could do to kind of increase your seed returns? So those are kind of some things we have here in terms of education. One of the things that a lot of people don't have is, so we have a guideline so I think this is under the guidelines for maintaining a collection. So inventory guidelines for local seed libraries. This is a good thing to kind of note. Just some things you should, be having a plan. I'm a big person of putting in calendar reminders. So I just have like a calendar reminder, which is like, hey, it's time to go in and clean the library up. And we just have it like as an annual thing that's an auto reminder. So we know, whether we do it once or twice a year. This is a really good document to have, the seed library, the Seed Matters chart. So I think this is a really good poster to include in your library, where people can see, oh, I'm borrowing. It's one for both the borrowers, but also for the seed librarians, where you can see if you've got a donation from arugula, it's good for 5 years. So if it's 2 years old, it's still going to be fine. So this is something you can post in your library and people can see it. And that kind of also helps you when you do your cleanup. One of the things that we do at Richmond Grows is we have everything in jars, because we had mice one year, and that was kind of like the end of the seed packets. But we put the numbers, the year on the top. So when it comes to cleaning out our drawers, it's really easy to see if this is, if we need to pull something or germ test it for that year. Let's see. I want to kind of more focus on kind of some of the new resources because there is so much. I'm trying to reorganize the Seed Library Network, the new website, so that it's easier to navigate and people can find what's there. We don't have much up. We pretty much have the start a Seed Library resources. So you can kind of go through. So we have the Explore the Map, which I said I hope people really look at. We also have the Seed Library Network. So we're including networks on here. So you can see, if, where are you guys? You guys, Michigan Seed Library Network. So regional and state networks. So the idea is like, what are you doing that other regional or state networks are also doing? Like, can we figure out how to work together and build off of that? And it's also interesting that there are also some native networks going on. So if you have some people in your community that are focusing specifically on natives, it's like, do they want to come together and actually have a little natives seed library kind of network in there to kind of support best practices? And so those are all of the create a library stuff. And where did I want to show in particular? Oh my gosh, this is the part. The signage. No, it's the envelopes and labeling. Sorry, envelopes and labeling. Signage is also very cool. Oh, this is an important part. So this is one of those other things that every seed library, the how long seed library seeds are active is one thing. And it's a nice piece to put in that a seed germination, not seed germination, seed viability chart that I just showed. But this is something that all seed libraries are supposed to have. And each seed library should, if you have local seeds, need to post this. And this is on our new website, seedlibrarynetwork.org, under signage. And basically it's a seed disclaimer. So when we were in 2014 having conversations with some of you might have heard about the legal challenges back in the day when they were saying that seed libraries, according to Pennsylvania's interpretation of seed law, seed libraries were considered seed companies and seed distributors. So we had a good 2-year conversation, the Seed Library Network, with the American Association of Seed Control Officials and seed companies around why seed libraries should be exempt from commercial seed regulations. And one of the agreements that we came to was, one, we can never expect seed libraries, a seed library patron to return seeds. So we can encourage them to return seeds, but it can't be a requirement of borrowing seeds. Because once you ask them to borrow and return, and that's an expectation, you put yourself in a contractual obligation, and so you can't do that. But the other thing we also had agreed was best practices is to have some type of seed signage disclaimer, just saying that these are locally grown seeds. They don't necessarily, we don't accept patented seeds, genetically modified seeds, and we're just doing the best, like communities have done for thousands of years, to share seeds to feed our community. And so it's a little bit of tongue in cheek compared to what I think they were expecting us to say, because we're like, yeah, this is something we've been doing for tens of thousands of years, is sharing seeds, and they don't come out all pure and, true to type, because that just hasn't been what we've done in community for 10,000 years. So there is a link to this that you can print. Once again, it's just a nice thing to kind of share so that people know that things may be mislabeled. I must say I have gotten mislabeled seeds from professional growers as well. But it's just a nice thing to include. But the piece that I really wanted to share here is around the envelopes and labels. So for people that are packaging seeds, or even if you're just putting seeds in a jar, when we did our census, one of the pieces that came in, we asked people if they had resources to share. This guy from Wisconsin, Braden, and we have all of our classes. So the Skillshare on envelopes. So if you're just starting a library and you want best practices, you can find this on the seedlibrarynetwork.org. So our class. And one of the things we featured was this auto seed wrapper. And I wanted to highlight it because it was just so amazing. Basically, this guy created a spreadsheet where you can type in the common name and the year and the description and planting times, and then you press a little button and it auto generates wrappers for you just on regular paper. They glue theirs on. We did a modified version of it, so it's just going to be a single-sided, but I can just go and I can print out a whole bunch of these and stick them on jars. I can stick them in jars so that people, when they take their seeds, because we don't pre-package, we just stick stuff in. We are working right now. I have someone who's working on this, and we're going to come out with a version that is 8.5 by 11. So it prints 6 on 8.5 by 11. If you do the Avery labels on your thing, we're going to have an Avery version. So it's just, small like that. And so that's going to be coming soon, but you can see what's already here, and it's a game changer. So as a seed library you're packing the seeds, and often people use, if you're purchasing seeds, you're probably buying the same seeds over and over again. And to be able to just change the year and press a button and print out however many labels you want on Avery paper or, on just regular, just 8.5 by 11 paper, game changer. It is a massive, massive, massive time saver. And one of the things that we're doing with our new version, which is not here yet because we're still working on it, is I am having a drop-down menu about seed saving. And so if people on their envelopes, they can just click a little drop-down menu and it'll say how to save tomato seeds, how to save cucumber seeds, and we also have the information about if you're looking for a more genetically diverse mix, what that would look like as well. So this is amazing. And along with the idea of people, that this is a very community generated program. On the bottom of most of our pages, we have a community tips and resources, as well as add your own resources. So these are air tables. And so what happened there? Uh-oh. Okay. That's the whole thing is not liking it when I'm on. Let me get off of the. Nope. Okay. For some reason with Zoom, I'm not able to do it. But basically, long and short of it is you can go into this community tips and resources document, and it will show you all these people that said, here are examples of labels. And so you could see labels in different languages. So you can see people that have used pictures and people that have used QR codes, tips about best practices for labels and envelopes. And then if you had something that you personally wanted to share, you could also add your resources to the document. So it's, and I'm not sure what is going on with my screen there. Okay. I have gotten in a weird zone. I'm going to stop sharing and reshare for a second. Okay. Let's see. What are there any messages? And also feel free, Pam, if there's questions that come up to ask me if anything comes in about comments or anything like that.
Yeah, so far everybody's just listening.
Okay. Okay.
But
no
if
worries.
if you need to play around for a second, I can fill in for you for a minute. But
It seems like, okay, there it is. Okay, I was not able to grab my screen and reposition it. So for some reason, I'm not able to hit the button about the community tips, but it's just a really awesome way where you can see all of the resources that people have shared. And as I said, you can also add your own resources to the document. So that's really kind of fun to see what resources people are sharing. Like I said, that's how we came across this auto wrapper, which is, I think, a game changer. And I will put out on our social media as well as the Cool Beans newsletter when we have our own version done, because it's got the drop-down menu for, like I said, for seed saving, which I think is one of the pieces where people said that they don't have a lot of returns. And I think if we are able to put seed saving instructions right on the packet, and the seed libraries don't need to know what it is or type what it is. They just need to go, here's a tomato. I'm going to do the drop-down menu for tomato. Here's the drop-down menu for squash. And then it just prints it on the label. And then when people take a label, or if it's pre-packaged, all that information is right on the package. So I think it's going to really my hope is that it really supports community members and to save seeds, because they have all the information right on the packet when they take it home. Okay. And then to that, in terms of supporting people with seed saving, we recently made some how to save seeds. So we have a public folder on some of the seed saving posters. At this point, we just have 3 of them. So we have a best practices. And once again, these are also things that, would be helpful if you've got the space in your seed library to, post them up there so that people can see what are best practices. And let's see, oopsie, I keep going to that one. And let's see. And then we also have this like how to save bean seeds and how to save tomatoes. So those are the ones that are right now. So for right now in the Richmond Grow Seed Lending Library, I just printed this out and just put it right on the shelf so that hopefully when people are coming to the seed library right now, they're saying like, oh, save beans. I could save some of my bean seeds. This is how to do it. And it just shows, the whole process, as well as what we would prefer that those labels include. And then the other piece I know, and I know Bevan, you've done a lot of work on this in your community, is going around and teaching a lot of seed saving classes. And I don't know I'm curious in Michigan, what's going on in terms of how many seed savers are teaching classes, or is it kind of on your shoulders? What's the state of the seed saving teaching going in Michigan?
Well, I mean, there's obviously me, but there's quite a few others that are out doing it as well, so it's certainly not like a one-man job. There's more folks every year out teaching in their communities about how to save seeds, which is really encouraging to see, because years ago I felt like maybe I was the only one out there doing it. But there's certainly quite a few more that are doing the work. So it's really awesome to see that.
Okay, that makes me happy.
Yeah, I'd like to add something too.
Yeah.
With the classes and education, I think empowering the seed librarians themselves to learn and put together programs is really a great idea too. A lot of libraries say I can't afford to have speakers, and it can be a big hit, but you can train. We call it educating the educator, and one thing that we want to do with, and maybe this is a part of, rather than doing it just locally, part of what you and Julie are doing is to have education for educators, so people can create their own programs, maybe have some template programs. I'm happy to, I've got slides from probably 50 different programs that I can share with people. They would have to modify them to their own library and everything, but there's a lot of sharing we can do in that respect too.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the thing, is that, creating these programs takes a lot of time.
Yes.
And as you well know, and, trying to figure out how to support people so that not everybody who's got that bandwidth or that knowledge base has easier access. So I've been doing a lot more classes and teaching master gardeners who, for the most part, get very, very little seed saving in their induction program, maybe 30 minutes on what are seeds and nothing on seed saving. And so really hoping that we as a community can encourage master gardener programs to increase and elevate seed saving as part of their regular induction program as opposed to continuing education. But right now, the situation is, how can we support those master gardeners that do, or other people in the community that do want to do seed saving? So I worked in creating this class called Seed Saving in Community. And it's one of the, I think, issues with some definitely master gardeners, as well as some other, public institutions, is the need to have something that has absolutely, everything has to be license free. And so I made sure that, that I am the owner of all of the images in here, or I think there's a couple of them from Julia as well. So, so this is a seed saving class that can be taught by anyone, and I'm going to make a video on it. So if people want to just watch the video, me teaching it, and then they feel like maybe they've got a little bit more bandwidth and capacity to do it in their own community. And hopefully, I don't know about how it is with you folks, but, if there's a list also of people who can teach seed saving, so that people have a list of who in their area could do that, is also helpful until, more people are able to kind of step into that role. Do you guys have a list of seed savers, or what's your
Well, we do have a list of a database of programmers in Michigan, people that do programs in Michigan. It's not, I haven't had a lot of help with keeping it up, but we did a seed library profile survey.
Yeah.
And so we're going to go over the results of that in a minute, and that's going to open up some of this conversation too. But it's really needs to be, participation is key. Bevan and I can't do it all ourselves. We're a committee of two that basically run this with Heather's help on some of this stuff. And so we
Yeah.
really appreciate what you're doing.
I think you'll be happy when we finish the
Mhm.
new version of the Seed Library Network, because it's going to be a lot more robust, easier to navigate. And we are also reaching out, like we've reached out to Seed Savers Exchange and the Community Seed Network and a number of different organizations, Organic Seed Alliance, to figure out what is being hosted by other organizations that we're in alignment with, that we can kind of point out to, because Seed Savers Exchange also has, Organic Seed Alliance and Seed Savers Exchange both have a lot of really good kind of train the trainer seed saving classes. So we have our own that we're going to share, but also they have a whole thing about navigating how to become a seed teacher on their website. So we're going to link out to those as well.
Awesome.
Yeah. And let's see. And then lastly, there's the map. So if you could put the link into the map into the chat. So if people haven't, this is different from the Michigan Seed Library map. This is the global one. You can see we had a lot of energy, and we got the United States done, and then kind of like need to get back on track and getting other parts going and reaching out. And then lastly, I want to just talk about how people can kind of stay connected with each other through some of the resources we offer. So as I mentioned, we do the Cool Beans newsletter, which is published mostly on the full moon, although we have a new editor who just got a new job. And so we're a couple days behind this time. But if you go to Substack, it's Seed, and Julia, maybe you can, I don't know if Julia's still here, but it's Seed Library Network.substack.com, and I can type that in after I kind of get off. And then, as I mentioned, we also have the forum, and you can get that from our homepage on either seedlibraries.net or seedlibrarynetwork.org. And then obviously we also have social media presence on Instagram and Facebook, and we're at Seed Libraries. So that is that. Okay. Any questions? Oh, thank you for putting that in, Julia. You are so awesome.
Well, while we're waiting for questions, I just want to give deep appreciation to Rebecca. Back in 2012, when I started starting the seed library, there was Rebecca's Richmond and Grows seed library was the seed library. And there was a handful of others, and I mean small handful. And I just, you guided just by having your website to look at. You gave us so much guidance. And the idea for the One Seed, One State, Rebecca, they had done a One Seed, One Community type of situation. And that was so, we shamelessly have copied so much of the work that Rebecca did.
It is meant to be copied.
Well, and I think when you're speaking to a group of librarians, I think that which not all of us are, but some of us are, from garden clubs and things like that. But just the essence of librarianship is not to reinvent the wheel. We do share an awful lot, and it's a wonderful group to be involved in. And so, yeah, just wanted to give huge thank you to Rebecca for being one of the pioneers, if not the pioneer, of this whole crazy seed thing we're into now.
It has been a pleasure. And it was fun. Like when I remember getting like your email, and then also just like shortly thereafter, there was like a whole network in Michigan. And I was like, woohoo, this is exciting.
Yeah. Well, Bevan's the one the person behind actually creating the website and everything. And I got, my little planet got sucked into that universe. And
it's a good universe to be in.
Yeah, the rest is history.
Fabulous. Awesome.
Okay,
I will mute myself. If
oh,
anyone.
okay. Well, thank you so much, Rebecca
My pleasure. My
and
pleasure.
Julia.
Yeah, thank you both of you. I appreciate you so much spending the time with us today so we could all learn from you. Thank
I
And,
you.
know we're just wishing we had the capacity to do our own summit this year. But we're like, no, stay focused
well,
on the
you do so much else. I mean, the summit is one of the things that, we can manage to pull off. And so, the work that you're doing and being, I'm going to make sure we get all these links
do
to
you
everything
think
on our website
I was
too.
just saying that was going to be my question. Yeah,
Yeah.
so we went out to that. Yeah.
And you seem to have a really great group of volunteers, both of you. I wanted to quick point out Julia's comment about the books that are available. Landrace Gardening by Joseph Lofthouse and Breed Your Own Vegetables by Carol Depp is one couple of the real backbone of seed saving. And one thing not to forget for those of you in libraries and those of you who aren't in libraries is that my library has those books. And so I don't, if a lot of people request them, there may be a waiting time, but having a really good book, well, materials, there's mostly books, there's a few videos out, but having a really good reference section, and I don't mean reference that they have to be reference books, but books that are available to your patrons, and through Melcat. And there's tons of gardening books, seeds books, everything out there. So don't forget to check Melcat when you're looking for some of these books. Try them out, look at them, and then if you like them, you can purchase them for your library, or ask that your library purchase them. I think that having a really good relationship with if you're a director, or if you're build a relationship with your director about the seed library. I've managed over the years to have, to secure a budget for my seed library. It's not huge, but it allows me to buy some seeds if I need to, have presenters come in. Also, she lets me go in and order pretty much every book I want, even when she's probably thinking, oh gosh, another one on whatever. So, if you can encourage your director and or whoever orders the books that these, come up with a list of books that would really be great to augment your seed library. Try it, get some good materials in for your patrons to check out. But in the meantime, you use Melcat, use your interlibrary loan situations. Okay, I'm done with that.
Awesome.
Okay, we got some thanks, and Rebecca has put in some more links. And again, I'm going to send out an email probably in the next couple of days with the link to this program, and it'll also be, or the summit, and it'll also be on the website, Michigan or miclibrary.org, if you want to watch. And yeah, and Michelle says that seed wrapper sounds like a game changer. What an awesome thing. I can't wait to check that out.
Yeah, I have to say, it is amazing because you can put on, like, we have a space for, full sun, like planting instructions, seed saving instructions, notes about the seed saving, how many seeds to take or how many seeds should go in the envelope. So like all of that is just on that, and it goes on, one of these size envelopes, or you could do the smaller version using an Avery thing. I mean, it is, and then the thing, it's amazing. And then we share so many seeds, then I can just, instead of making all these copies for someone else, I can just share, here's my auto wrapper spreadsheet, go ahead and print out your own copies.
Yeah, I spend a huge amount of time making labels for seeds. You only have to create one, but when you're got a lot of seeds, it takes a long time. So I'm very excited about that.
It's nice because you're not having to hunt for it. It's like it's all in one place.
Yeah.
Game changer.
Yes, I think that if you said one thing this whole day, and you said many wonderful things, you and Julia, truly, I think we've all got a lot of homework to do now after listening to your presentations. Well, let's move on to, I wanted to work on the seed library profile results before we go into the question and answer roundtable. Oh, whoa, I didn't do that right. Geez, I'm being totally incompetent right now.
Well, while Pam figures that out,
I've
I'll just
almost
jump in
got it.
here. You almost got, yeah. I
Go
wanted
ahead.
to kind of echo what Rebecca was saying about those seed posters that she has that you guys can print out. That one that's got the like the best practices for saving seeds in general, or the more specific ones for saving bean seeds, tomato seeds, and I'm sure they'll have more of those coming out. Those are fantastic. Some of the libraries that I visited that have had signage like that, or sometimes they'll make a little pamphlet with some how-to information and that sort of thing. Those libraries always have higher returns than the ones that don't. You know, even something as simple as just putting that poster up, folks can take a picture of it with their cell phone and then take it home and then go through it and learn how to save their bean seeds or whatever it might be. Just something as simple as a poster can have such an impact on the engagement that you can have with your community. It's such an important tool.
Yeah, and I'm happy to share. I put together a seed saving pamphlet to take to the Heirloom Expo in California in September, and I'm going to make that available. And my skills at things like websites and pamphlet making are from fair to rudimentary, but yeah, I tried to do a decent job with it. And of course, as far as I'm concerned, they're editable. You can make it say what you want, but it kind of gives you the template, and I'll make that available soon too, as soon as I've got it ready. So anyway, many of you, I think around 60 as of now, unless somebody snuck in since I last looked, we did our profile results. And the first one of the questions is my seed library is housed in, and out of 59 people, you can see that almost everyone is in a public library of some sort. And the next largest one is an academic library of some sort. We have a couple of little free seed libraries. Someone who has a mobile seed library, that's really awesome. If you've got a bookmobile, consider putting your a little version of your seed library anyway. You can put it in there. So I thought that was really, I didn't realize that that was such a high amount of public libraries, but it just makes sense. Public libraries are open a lot of hours, and they're open to the public. And so, it's a really good fit. This one is I'm kind of put some some of the comments, or most of the comments below, but the almost all of them offer vegetable and herb seeds. Not far behind is flower seeds. But I was really happy to see that 61% of the libraries that responded do native seeds. And cover crops, we had 8 libraries do cover crops, which is really and that's an opportunity for a whole nother program too. And some of the comments that someone said they had a patron donated redbud tree seeds, and so they're thinking, well, they're thinking to that, that you could try that as well. Bulbs, and then some rain garden seeds, and culturally important crops to community members. If you live in a community that has a high percentage of any type of culture, you definitely want to bring those people in, and because they have often have so much to share. My community here has a fairly high population of people from India, and it's been my experience with my seed library that they're enthusiastic gardeners, and so I try to make sure that we have things in the seed library that they're looking for, to grow, that can be grown in Michigan. Obviously, some some things are. So, look around. Some people have a high amount of indigenous people in their area, or they're a tribal library. And of course, you want to grow those culturally important crops. Someone said native grasses and green mulch. And then some people just do one seed, one state. And hey, that's fine. One of the reasons we created this is so that people could kind of gauge the interests of their community. And maybe because some librarians or library employees that want to start a seed library, they're kind of trying to get a little traction with either the library board or their director. And it's really great if you can come to them and say, hey, we participated in one seed, one state, and we had a great result. All the seeds got taken. And we would like to see if we can expand into having a small seed library. And so, it's kind of dipping your toe in the water, so to speak. Library staff does the main amount of managing of seed libraries, which makes sense because most of them are in libraries. About 10 of them said that they're run by volunteers. And I do know a handful of public library seed libraries that do depend on volunteers completely to run the seed library. In the garden club, we have a couple of those. And sometimes the garden club also uses the library for that. And then I'm going to let you, quite a few people talked about what other organizations they team up with. MQT Growth, Kalamazoo Valley Community College, Food Innovation Center, Kalamazoo Valley Museum staff, the public library, they're all working together, which is fabulous. And they do have some great things on their website too. Some partner with their Parks and Rec. And then sometimes you can get garden clubs interested in, is your garden club interested in putting a native plant garden in at your library? So, there is, someone mentioned garden clubs. So yeah, see who else is out there that might be willing to help out or help you manage your library, or at the very least, help you get some seeds for your seed library. Management practices. This was a big one. It's probably too much for one question, but I'm learning about this whole poll taking thing myself. So registration is required. Only 5 people do that. And I've been thinking, I'm one of them, and I've been thinking about why are we doing this for a long time. So I think that this kind of tells me that this is something we're going to rethink for 2025. What we do with the information, generally I use it to sign people up for the monthly newsletter that we do. So we can do that without having registration. Limits are set on how many seed packets can go. So we've got, 37 libraries do set limits of the people that respond, of the 53 that responded. 0 have barcodes. I think there was a library that used to do barcoding, and I think they I can't even imagine how cumbersome that might be. So I think that kind of fell out of favor. And patrons have, I don't even know. So anyway, people put pictures on their labels. Only 24 do that. That's very time consuming. I'm lucky to get the labels made, but and then 40 people out of the 53 will split their retail packets up into smaller packets. And especially when you've got seeds like eggplants, nobody needs 40 eggplant seeds that they might get in their retail seed packet, unless you're a market gardener. It's highly unlikely. So you go ahead and split them up. You can get 3 or 4 packets out of each retail packet. So we got lots of comments about that. And then you can go ahead and read with me, but some people ask for a courtesy registration, not required. Patrons check out in a physical binder. I guess that's when, we have a clipboard that we ask people to write down how many packets they take. We invite anybody who wants seeds to take a package. Some people list the donating companies on the cultivars, or either on the packet or on a poster. Some people put limits. Seems like 4 or 5 seeds per day seems to be a common thread. But it's really hard to monitor that, obviously, and so maybe it makes people think twice about just grabbing seeds that they might not need. So doing an inventory once a year and providing that, you can do it in a binder or on a spreadsheet that's online. So repackaging free to all, donations are packaged, no residency requirements, and no limit on vegetable seeds. All their seeds are donated from a local garden center, housed in the catalog by type. So that's interesting. We do sometimes get local donations like that from local hardware stores and garden centers, even a grocery store sometimes. Unfortunately, a lot of these places who have seeds that they're required at the end to throw away any unsold seeds. It's too expensive to send them back to the company, so they want you to throw them away. And so sometimes a lot of them comply with that, but sometimes they ignore that and they give them to us. So we always appreciate that when we do. We won't name them by name, but it does happen. So how do you acquire your seeds? 47% said they get them from gardeners. And this was a check all that apply thing. So some people use more than one of these responses. So donations from gardeners, seed companies, retail stores, 22. I think that's great. I'm really glad to see that some of these retail places are sharing their leftover seeds. 43 people out of 59 purchase at least some of their seeds, and 17 get them from seed swaps. So comments, we're still working this out. Establishing partners. I think that's really a great idea, especially if you're in an area where you've got other groups around that can help you out and partner with you. Grown Up Properties owned by Kalamazoo Valley Food Innovation Center and the Rain Garden of the Kalamazoo Valley Museum. I just started poking around on the website that they have for Kalamazoo as far as their seed initiative, and it's really some good stuff there. And when I have a little more time, I'm going to really look at it closely. Our seed purchases are funded by the Friends of the Library. Always something to consider if you're not allowed a budget to purchase seeds, or you can approach your Friends of the Library and say, hey, may I have $500 a year, $200, $100, whatever you feel that you can make fly with them, and use that to kind of flesh out. I always say it's kind of fleshing out your collection with things that you don't get donated very often. Like I don't think maybe once we've had beet seeds donated, and so there are things that you can buy, and still when people come to your seed library, they see something interesting, or they go, oh yeah, I really like that. And with hoping, especially with things like beans and easy to save crops, that they will try to save a few and bring them back to the library. Again, don't obsess over that, but just do what you can to educate and encourage. Someone says they're going to forage milkweed and mullein seeds, both worthy additions to your native seed collections. Community gardens donate to, I think that's great. We have a 60 plot community garden just down the street, and they're pretty heavy users of the seed library, but and some of them do donate back. One Seed, One State is the source of seeds. This one I thought was really interesting. They've had visitors write to seed companies on our behalf. And getting your group involved, that, don't just say, hey, if any of you have, the time, can you write to seed companies? We could do a whole thing on just how to contact seed companies. You just have to keep in mind that seed companies are often inundated by requests from seed libraries, and some to the point where they just say, we can't do it anymore. And others have gotten around it by asking for a fairly steep shipping charge. And sometimes it's worth it. High mowing seeds is one that they charge for the shipping, but you get a lot of seeds from them. So, you kind of got to, in some places I paid for shipping and just got a handful of seeds. So this person says they don't repackage donations to promote their local growers. So if you are getting things that are already packaged from local growers, that's a great idea to give them the credit. Housed in an old card catalog, as do we, and people do love that. They love seeing it back. Those who remember them anyway. I save seeds from my own garden and the library's garden and the native plant garden. So there's lots of ways you can kind of see if you can get a little spot to grow a few seeds, even if it's just in a very small bed. You can concentrate on, well, this year I'm going to grow black-eyed Susans and save the seed from that. Do you provide handouts or make displays for patrons? What subjects do you offer? Check all that apply. And I was happy to see that 35% or 35 respondents out of 56 have a pamphlet or a display on seed saving, and almost as many for seed starting. Information about how to use your seed library. Hopefully we all have that up, either in a brochure or signage. Upcoming programs, you definitely want to push those. Seasonal advice. Like, okay, now it's September, it's time to, do this. Or if it's like in December, you say, okay, it's time to start your stratifying your native seeds so that they will germinate in the spring. So you can kind of make a little display about things like that, or you can just put a display out of seeds and say, it's April in Michigan, so right now you can be starting this, and this, and put those seeds out and highlight them. A lot of people, it doesn't occur to them to plant until late Memorial Day here in Michigan. That there's sometimes it's Mother's Day, but there's some magical thing that people think happens on those days that finally they have carte blanche to start all seeds, whether they're seeds that can be started when it's cold or not. And unfortunately, we all know that there is ample chances for frost after Mother's Day specifically, and Memorial Day occasionally. So you have to warn people that if you're going to start your seeds, that they have to they have to keep an eye on the weather, or especially if they're putting out plants. So somebody with planned natural landscaping brochure designed by their city. Yeah, if you're a city library and your city puts out publications, by all means, take advantage of that. So, a library guide offering this information. Yes, making a display of gardening books by your seed library is always a great idea. Rain gardens and native plants. Seasonal information, seasonal rotation of seeds helps spark and maintain interest, increased our number of donations. So those are all great ideas and comments. Seed packaging, almost everyone uses the paper coin envelopes for at least some of their seeds. Small plastic Ziploc bags, those work really well. People can see the seeds, which is kind of an advantage. The disadvantage is if your seeds aren't totally dry, when you put them in a Ziploc bag, they could start to mold or degrade. So you just have to, that's the only caveat about Ziploc bags is that you may have to make sure everything's really dry. Handmade envelopes, 9. That's pretty ambitious. I think it's great. When we first started our seed library, there was a librarian who has since retired, unfortunately, but she literally made thousands of seed envelopes for us using discarded library books and magazines. They had a template they used on their Cricut, and she just made thousands of them for us, and it was so helpful in the beginning. And we were able to send them out to every library. Unfortunately, that has ended, so each library has to get their own packets now, but it was nice while it lasted. 4 of the people have serves from jars or other containers. Retail seed packets, one just puts those out, and that probably maybe the same person keeps them in original seed packets. Seed packet labels, 43 out of 58 use the Avery type printed labels. 7 stamped or printed packets. 22 handwritten packets. That's a lot of work, but that it looks really cool though. I always enjoy the handwritten packets. 18 include growing instructions on the labels, and 4 put the pictures of plants on the labels. So someone said they have a personalized hand stamp. Seed planting depth, days to germination, days to harvest is the information. They include garage sale stickers to indicate soaking seeds, trellising, and bush pole beans. That's kind of interesting. I've seen things where they also color code with maybe a little round sticker if it's an easy, an intermediate, or a difficult plant to save seed from. I guess I shouldn't use the word difficult. Maybe challenging's better. Some keep in original seed packets from the commercial seeds. This one prints labels from Canva and glue it to the packet, but they're looking to switch to Avery. Yeah, you can make some really cool stuff in Canva, but then you do have the extra step of gluing. So I can see why you're looking to switch, especially if your seed library grows. Electronic databases on the website, that's a great idea. We've done it in the past. It's kind of, for me, I find it hard to maintain. You can get everything on, and then you run out of stuff, and then people come in, well, it says you have this. And so that if you've got somebody who can really be in charge and on top of things, that is a great thing. Basic information on the seed packet labels, and then keep a binder of detailed information, including photos of the flowers and vegetables and the original retail packaging of the seeds in our collection. And that way people can just use their phones to take photos of the pages. That's a great idea. Again, having a binder or some, I've seen people that have used the little photo albums to slide the seed packet in so people can look at the seed packet. If you get sometimes your donations don't have a seed packet attached. So that is another challenge. How do you keep track of the viability of your seeds? 17 of the 58 said they keep a spreadsheet. 24 put them on the labels. They don't, and 26 don't have a plan in place. Hoping to implement one soon. All my seeds get taken the first or second year of putting them out. Our centrally supplied seeds are all gone at the end of the program. Everything was purchased this year to start the collection. Packets remaining will be stamped with a year date for future weeding. Printed and pasted. Usually there are no seeds left by late August. We only keep seeds for 2 seasons. Our seed packets are taken before expiration. Yearly germination testing for older seeds. And when the packets are labeled, the date the seed gets collected is on each label. Seeds are discarded and given away the second year after donation. So, those are all, people obviously have a plan. The 2-year thing seems to be really common, but a lot of things like melons are often good for 4 years or more. onions and corn, or especially sweet corn, that they don't tend to last so long. Onions don't last so long. So you kind of look at your viability charts and kind of go accordingly. You might be throwing out seeds that might be good for a couple of more years. Just my 2 cents on that. Germination testing, great idea. It's just an annual thing. If you have some older seeds and you're going, these are kind of tottering on the edge of being at the end of their viability, you do a germination test. You basically just put them in some wet. You can use paper towels or washcloths, whatever you want to use, and keep them just moist, and put in like whatever your control amount of seeds is, say 20 seeds, and then you can use more or less, but if you've got plenty of seeds, the more seeds you do, the better idea you can get of how many are germinating. But I've been really surprised. I put things in there that I thought, oh, these must not be any good anymore. And, every single one of them germinates enthusiastically. And then other times I'm surprised because I'm glad I'm taking these out, because these just aren't doing very well. So germination testing is a great idea, especially if you're unsure. 57 people responded. Is your seed library open all year? 28 answered yes. A couple mentioned, I may close for a couple of weeks to restock, but it's for all intents and purposes, they're open all year. 23 answered they're open seasonally. Most of them open in April or May and March, and then they conclude in sometimes after that season. Some of them conclude as early as June or July. Most go until fall. 2 answered they open for spring and again in the fall, but not all year. So they're open, for the spring planting and fall planting. 4 answered they open in spring and close when the seeds are gone. And going back to the other question, I was also surprised at how many people ran out of seeds. I guess not surprised, but I guess you can be encouraged. You can say, hey, I need more seeds. And that's something with it you can gauge your seed either purchases or growing, if you grow your own, or you encourage your patrons to grow their own. You can say, hey, we have these seeds, but we don't have enough. We have way more interest in kind of going back to something that was mentioned earlier too, is you can, if you develop a relationship with some of your super like mega gardeners, the people that are super into growing and using the seed library and saving seed, you can assign them something. And maybe it's a challenging thing, but I've had really good luck with it. You don't say grow 40 of these plants, but you say, I have a bean that is culturally significant, and could you help by growing this bean and saving the seed and isolating it so hopefully it stays a little pure, or conversely, here's a selection of beans, and would you grow them together and save them so we can maybe get a land race or Grex growing for our own seed library for our own area? Kind of tap into some people that you think can handle it and ask them for a favor, and you'd be surprised, they kind of often are glad you asked. They're flattered that you asked and take it pretty seriously. So that's kind of a little tidbit I'm going to add in there. Online newsletter, we got 53 responses. 40 said no, 10 answered yes, and 1 said they had an email list that they just send emails out to, and that works really well too if you don't have a newsletter. 1 will begin a newsletter in 2025, and 1 said they are launching a quarterly printed newsletter. So those are all great ideas. I do an online newsletter, a monthly newsletter. We use Library Aware at our library, but whatever your library uses for newsletters, if they have one, kind of tap in, see, can I do an, and it doesn't have to be monthly. I torture myself by doing that, but if a quarterly one would be awesome too. And just and have people sign up for it and send it out. So I did put down, if you want to snap a picture of this and go and sign up. I already signed up for some of these. Sign up for their go to their library websites. Most of them have somewhere on there that says sign up for the newsletters. And sometimes the newsletter will some of them include theirs in the regular newsletter for the library's overarching newsletter, and some of them have their own just for the seed library. So I'm assuming that these that are listed here, they have their own just for the seed library, but I didn't get a chance to check every one of them. So yeah, give that a look and it might inspire you. Does your seed library have its own web page? Or have a web page, a web presence, I guess you could say. 27 answered yes, and almost all of them said through their library's website, and 26 said no. So yeah, and that's the way we do it here. I have what we call LTPL grows, our seed library, etc. All of our gardening things we have our own web page on our website, but it's connected to the library's website, and a vast amount of people that responded, that's the way it is. So again, I have there's another page, a list too. If you want to snap a picture, you can go look at them, kind of get inspired. Oh, I guess there was just one. Does your seed library host garden presentations? If so, what are the most popular? And include the names and contact information if you can. 27 said yes, they offer programming to support their seed library. 20 answered they don't or not yet. And and it takes a while, but having it being on the horizon is perfectly fine. And as we've found today, there's lots of inspiration to be found out there on the from Julia and Rebecca's sites, and also looking at each other's. Now, a couple have held plant and seed exchanges, but not particularly programs. So some of the comments here about giving talks themselves, master gardeners come in, plant swaps, Michigan Heirlooms. That's Karen from Michigan Heirlooms. She does programs. We've done seed swaps, presentation on seed savings and crafts involving seeds. MSU Extension, depending on where you are, your region, MSU has regional people that you can get in contact with. They have a pretty vast selection of programming, I guess you could say, and they do also on food preservation too, as well as gardening. Those anything having to do with preservation at our libraries really popular. So pollinator programs, Bees in the D, MSU Extension programs about pest control. Now here's one: fall and winter veggie growing with Rachel Carter and thriving in an era of climate extremes with Rachel Engel. I'm not familiar with either one of those people, but if you are, I would love to see them added to our seed library presenter database that we have. Lynn Bryant is another one, and Lindsay Kerr down at the bottom from part of MSU Extension. And again, depending on where you are, you might have different people with MSU because they do have regional offices. Child programming with related story time. That's an excellent way to, not only interest children, but their parents in the idea of seeds. We've had over the years various children's programming with either starting seeds or in various ways. Or we have a little demonstration garden, and one year we let them all plant a seed in there. That got it kind of chaotic as the plants grew, keeping, with tags disappearing. And somebody says, well, where's my plant? And I said, well, the tag, I don't know if squirrels take them or what, but anyway, that it was really cool, but it had, it did have its challenges. Here's some more. Bevan is mentioned by several people, staff librarians, Seed Saving for Beginners, printed by Lonnie Weatherall. If anybody who answered these with names of people, if you could pop them into the comment form on the MI Library or Seed Library Network webpage so that we can put them into our spreadsheet, that would be awesome. Berkeley Garden Walk, yeah, partner with your garden club, and if they are holding a garden walk or something else, ask them if you can put out a table and just give out seed library information. Same with if you have any other types of community events where you can kind of have a presence at. I know it's a lot of work. It's likely going to take personal time of yours maybe, but it's really, really cool to have people find, people say, I had no idea there was a seed library. Most popular have been garden planting, seed saving, seed starting, and presentations on specific crops, like all about potatoes. And we've got Bevan, MSU and Bevan, botanical themed crafts around various holidays involving bulbs gourd and dried flowers are popular. So you can keep it going in the wintertime with, keep interest going, keep getting your name out there by doing some craft things. MSU is mentioned again, master gardeners, native plant swaps in the spring and fall, garden to table events. Those are really cool. A few libraries. We did that one year where we grew a pizza garden, and then we had a program using the tomatoes and peppers and herbs that we grew in the library garden to create a meal. It's a lot of work. I haven't done it since. Not because it's not worthy. It's just there's only so much you can do sometimes. So again, that's something to consider. Seed stewardship classes by Amy Buskirk. We do have her information I can put in there. So seed starting and bees are the most popular. So those are some ideas, maybe if you are considering some programming. Lots of comments about sharing about the seed library or tips or processes. Have a strong group of volunteers to help you package seeds. I will second, third, and fourth that. We make it a party. I have them come and we have music, and sometimes if there's not too much talking, and we put out some snacks, and I always give them a little something to take home, and usually like a marker, a paint marker that or seed tags or things like that, something garden related that's inexpensive that you can kind of give us a little thank you gift. You don't have to do that, but they do appreciate it. Community loves it. One person said they actually have to remove the seeds during large events because people take handfuls. I haven't seen that too much, but definitely I can see how that could be a problem. Possibly, that can be overcome, I'm sure, but it's, you gotta, your community better than anybody else. So you do what you gotta do. Educating on what it's able to be grown when, partnering with the school district, help and having people, someone partnered with a, school to have the students count and measure many seeds. Someone starting a new library, they really looking forward to sharing photos and receiving advice. I hope that person's on here today because they got a lot of advice. I thought this one was interesting, you know, not finding the lack of restrictions to create any issues. People who don't normally visit the library are stopping in for seeds and discovering the seed library. Card catalog is always a hit. Hard to find, though, if your library still doesn't have theirs. Asking for volunteers from the garden club helped us to stock the library. Sometimes you can ask if you have a page or someone else at your library who seems to be able to have an interest, and you know, you can sometimes enlist their help when they're done putting away books, of course with permission. Seed packaging party. Oop, that's me. Hold an annual seed sorting party in January. They process about 3,000 seed packets at that event. Again, similar to our experience too. So, you know, bring in those. The patrons like to be involved. They like to help. They like to see what's gonna. You know, it's kind of a way for them to get a sneak peek at what's going to be in the seed library this year too. And you can always tell people that they can, when you're done at the end of the seed packaging party, that they're welcome to take seeds. Again, that's totally up to you, but there is an option as long as they write down how many they're taking, because we do love our statistics. But continuously improving online ordering system. But I know a few libraries have done that where people, it's completely online. They don't have a physical seed library in the library, but they order them and then they're packaged and put out for them to pick up. We did that during COVID, and that worked really well. And we still offer it. If someone just for whatever reason can't come in and get their seeds, we will gather, you know, they can send me an email and I'll gather them up and put them in a bag and put them out in the pickup area. So, and the last one is me, Herb of the Month. I found that to get the interest of people. So a lot of little ideas to bring. What is unique about your library? Themed seeds. Looks like Capital Area District Library is going to try something different this year. I'm interested in seeing how that's going to work. So it looks like as a consortia there, or so to speak, or as a they're going to have the 3 theme seeds, and then individual branch libraries can supplement, you know, whatever they're going to do. So they're still putting this together, but it's going to be very interesting to see how that's going to work this year. Never have seeds left over, don't require a library card. Some people have put in that what kind of furniture they use to display, who they're collaborating with. And again, some remarkable stuff's being done with collaboration. They said the collaboration in their community to manage the seed library between multiple large institutions is very powerful. So I think that's great. I actually love to hear more about that. Maybe we can have some of these people speak next year about their collaborative endeavors. Having locations at each branch, seasoned gardeners available to answer questions. This is our first year, positive response from the community. Most of the staff are gardeners. That's a boon. I'm telling you, that is so lucky. Removing barriers, and that's what I've always felt seed libraries were, is we're not really competing with seed companies per se, and I think they see it that way too. That's why they, a lot of seed companies will offer their leftover seeds to us, as they don't really see us as competing, but more of a complementary service. And we don't always know the needs of others, so don't go crazy. Most people won't take 1 million packets. but well used. And we are the first seed library in the area and have helped spawn other seed libraries in the region. I just want to make one quick note about that there are, if you look at our Michigan Seed Library Network map, if you go onto the website and blow it up, there are some, especially right in the central area of Michigan, there's not very many. And I do get a lot of emails from people saying, can you tell me where there's a seed library in our area? And so I look at the map and I tell them, but there's some places like, I'm sorry, there's just not much around you. So, I'm really hoping to figure out how to get a little more enthusiasm for certain parts of the state to so anyway, that's the end of this program. I'm going to stop sharing the screen because I can't see the chat. I don't know if we're just bumping up to 3:00. I know a lot of you probably have places to be and things to do. And I hope if you're able to look at the chat and see we've got some ideas here in the if you use Library Aware, they have a seed library section. Geez, I don't think I noticed that. I will have to look at it. Canva has a lot of really cool stuff too, if your library has a subscription to that, or if you have one personally. My son and I make seed packets out of old calendars, especially the ones with nature seeds. So that's a great idea. Making labels in Canva and sticking them on the packets, taping them on. Family packs in colorful bags, 15 packets of a variety of veggies plus 1 melon and a few herbs. Great way to give some seeds that we had donated to us, what they had too much of, like 100 packages of cilantro. Great. That's kind of a good idea. If you can, yeah. Danielle wants to stress not spreading invasive species, adding it in your signage. Yeah, and definitely when you're looking for invasive species, she puts a link in there for MSU because what's an invasive species in Florida probably may not be in Michigan. So you don't really want to look at a national database. Our winters kind of kill off a lot of things. So having a good, local MSU chart is really handy to have. And so Lori's inspired. That's if we do nothing else today, we hope we inspire, you get some ideas and some of these great, oh yeah, and the other one, the Seed Library Network.com, another website, is Seed Savers Exchange. You can just Google that. I don't have the web address handy. They also have a lot of seed saving information on their website that you can share or use when you're making your pamphlets or brochures or when you're preparing a program. So I wanted to give a shout out to them as well. So I know it's 3:00, probably we're going to lose some people, but if you do want to take a few extra minutes to do a roundtable discussion, we can just, you can just unmute yourself and start talking if you have a question, or we can just end it and go on with this beautiful day we have. So it's up to you. What do you think, Ben?
Well, before we get into that, I have a hard stop at 3, so I am going to have to go. But I do want to just say thank you to everybody for participating with us today, to Rebecca and Julia for sharing all of their experience and knowledge and all of these links. For Lori, who was late, and for folks that were unable to make it, there will be a recording, right, that everybody's going to have access to, so they can check up on all the stuff that they missed. And then I also dropped into the chat box there a link to the Michigan Seed Library's Facebook group, if folks are interested in that, so we can have another platform to connect and to continue to share ideas and resources and stay in touch with each other between summits, most certainly. And Pam, big thank you to you for putting this whole thing together. Of course, as we all know, it wouldn't be possible without all of your hard work and dedication. So I just wanted to say thanks to you and to everybody for being a part of this community. It's it's so awesome to see everybody coming together to share seeds like this, the seeds of a better tomorrow. So thank you all for being here.
Oh, you're welcome. So, like I said, if anybody wants to stay and chat, I'll hang out if you want to go. Thanks for coming, and we'll see you at the next summit. And in between, we'll try to keep in touch. But go ahead and unmute yourself if you want to say something.
Hi, I just had one question.
Sure.
I know there were some books earlier that were mentioned, one of them being the Seed Garden. Is there going to be a list of books that were mentioned during the summit that we could look at, see if we wanted to
Put
purchase them
one
for our
together,
library?
a list of books. There's a lot of them out there, but some are, it's really good to know when you go shopping which ones are the very best. So I'll put the ones that were mentioned in the chat and maybe a few others that are really popular too. And I can I would like, there's so much I would like to do with the website if the time allowed, and my skills allowed too. But yeah, having a list of books that we recommend would be a great thing. So we'll definitely put that down. But I will put, I'm going to be sending you all an email to you and people that didn't, with a link to the, probably we'll get that online tomorrow, the link to the recording. And I've got some other notes of things to put in that email. In a list of books that were mentioned is one of them. So go ahead and look for that. And I'll try to put any other links that were in the chat today too, in the email, to Julia's link, Julia's work and Rebecca's work, and so that you can the recording will be available probably tomorrow afternoon. Our tech person is the one who actually puts that on YouTube. So, and she will do that tomorrow. But so as soon as that happens, like I said, I'll send out an email to everybody with that link and all these other links. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
You're welcome. I tend to more than answer a question sometimes. Anybody else have any questions? We still have Julia on, and Rebecca's still on. So if you have anything you wished you would have asked them earlier, now's the time to speak.
Or just, I'm super interested in implementation barriers for people. Like if they're inspired but not sure if they could do it, sort of what came up for you when you thought about sort of increasing diversity in your seed library?
Well, what came up for me was that, and people might not want to hear this, but I do a lot of the work on my own time, because I am a library employee and many of these people are. I have these other pesky things I have to do every day that have nothing to do with the seed library. So I do find myself, I virtually every moment, if I'm sitting down at night watching TVs, I'm filling seed packets or I'm on the computer doing something. So I guess a willingness to go beyond the confines of your library job, if you're a librarian or a library employee, and learn, just educate yourself. That's the thing that I guess, and I've always way before the internet, I would most of you aren't as old as I am, but you would send away for pamphlets. You used the Whole Earth catalog and you wrote to people and you asked for information about their, so I still have a lot of those, and it's so it's just really I guess educate yourself, be willing to be open to a lot of things. And as far as removing barriers, a few years ago, we stopped obsessing over returns and started worrying, trying to spend the time encouraging people to donate, but also coming into look other ways to get seeds, and writing seed companies is a big one. I have found that some seed companies, they have a place on their website where you can request seeds. Others don't. And I have found that actually an old-fashioned snail mail letter actually gets me more results than anything from some of the smaller seed companies. I just write saying, hey, I'm Pam, I run the seed library. I really depend on donations to have a more varied selection for my patrons. We like open pollinated seeds. But even another barrier that Julia has really done a lot to remove in our thinking, and I'm doing a lot of thinking about this, and Julia and Joseph Lofthouse, is this barrier of, as she mentioned in her program about, or her talk about, fear of messing up, and opening your mind to the idea of land races and grexes and learning how that can be done successfully. As she mentioned, you have to be careful about what you're using to create this. You don't use gourds with your edible squashes and things like that. But yeah, just remove that barrier, and even if you have to label them a little differently. But once in a while we'll get this. This is, and it won't be an heirloom tomato per se. Somebody will say, this is just a big red tomato I've grown for 20 years. And I just call it the big red tomato. Here it is. And, and I'm like, well, I don't have a name for it, but you can put a brief explanation. This is the big red tomato that, that someone is sharing with us, and and just not be so hung up on it being pure. But
yeah, I think one of those things, sorry to interrupt, I think one of those things
No.
about the purity piece is, and the barrier piece is, like, I love what Julia's packets look like, and I had it on the front of mine, which is when people see that diversity, it puts in a different image of, like, oh, everything's not going to come out looking exactly like this. And it's super pretty and it's engaging. And I think just that visual of having that diverse pumpkin or squash or whatever on the package just gives people permission and opens up the possibility of it being a different thing than just like, oh, here's the squash and they're all going to look at exactly the same.
Yeah.
Or
And I think squash are tricky, and I think that especially the peppos because
but yeah, I mean, we definitely have you have to put the caveats out there, but I think in terms of the barriers is showing people the possibilities on the package. I think opens up the
and
conversation.
some of those Zook pumpkins aren't bad, but some of them are. But yeah, teaching people about cross-pollination, but also teaching them how to cross-pollinate, if you are trying to keep a seed pure, because there's certainly benefit with that. And especially in a seed library where, and I've only had this happen a couple of times where somebody's come in and said, this was nothing like what you described it was on the seed packet, and sorry, and sometimes it's seed, even big seed companies have trouble with this sometimes. So where they may have, for some reason or another, something's infiltrated their pure line. And so I think that if people are going to represent something as a pure open pollinated seed, they should take every effort to keep it pure, but offer the other as an option though too. I guess that's where I'm going to say, because there are those people that want to know what they're getting, and they won't be happy if they don't. And I understand that. In Michigan, you only usually get one shot at this, and then if your melons turned out to be duds, you don't know that till August or September. And, it's not like you can replant them. So, it's just another way of thinking about it. Another way of labeling maybe is probably the best way to get around that.
Yeah, thank you. That's interesting. I don't know if anyone else wants to comment on that or leave it for me in the chat.
Yeah, she says she saves her weirdos. I like some of those weirdos are pretty tasty, aren't they? Well, I guess if nobody's well, I really appreciate those of you who hung on to the bitter end. It's always wonderful to see. And again, we have a comment form on the Michigan Library website, or Seed Library website. You can always send a comment form. I try to check that email every day. And sometimes I don't always get to it. It's one of the like 10 email things I manage. So, but I do try to get on it every day and answer the questions that come in. And so, if you think of something, if you think of a presenter that you want to recommend, if you think of a book you want to recommend, just pop it in there, and I'll do my best to save it with or share it with everybody. All righty. Well, thank you so much again, Julia and Rebecca. It was so good to see your faces again. And I'm going to say goodbye. Thanks,
Thank you so much
everybody.
for having me.
Oh, thank you. Goodbye. Yeah.